Hi, everybody. Welcome to Mormonish. I'm Rebecca.
And I'm Landon.
And you can probably tell by our screen right now that we're going to do something a little bit different tonight, aren't we, Landon?
We are. Yep, this is unique for us.
It is unique for us, but I think it's very needed, and we have had requests for this kind of thing. So you may know, well, you probably all know that we've been watching temples in different cities where the LDS Church is trying to build them for about a year and a half, starting with Cody, Wyoming, Heber Valley, Utah, Lone Mountain, Nevada, and most recently, where things are really heating up, Fairview, Texas, where they are building the McKinney, Texas temple. So last week, there was a town council meeting about the application for height variances to change some of the codes so that this temple, this very large temple, can be built on land in Fairview. So you might have seen us on John DeLynn on Mormon Stories, right, Landon? We got called up to the big show.
Right. And we got to watch it as a group and see the town meeting, but because of the length, we had to cut out partway through, and a lot of the good talks were actually at the end. So
exactly. And also, even before, we kind of jumped in right in the middle. And so a lot of people were emailing or texting or messaging saying, well, what happened? How did it start? How did it finish? What happened exactly? And we feel that it's really important to watch something like this. You will never find a town council meeting or a planning zoning board meeting as riveting as when they are talking about an LDS temple. It really shines a spotlight on just this little microcosm, this niche, but it shows tactics and behavior that I think we can recognize in other areas when dealing, unfortunately, with the institutional church. Again, we should say the residents that you're going to hear speak, and then the LDS members, a lot of them, the LDS members have sort of an undue influence on them from leaders and the institutional church, encourage them to say things, for example, that the height of the steeple is the important part of temple worship, things that they need to be said so that they can use a legal workaround to get this temple passed. Now, we will give you a little bit of background in addition to that. This did go before the Planning and Zoning Board last month, and people spoke, residents and members of the church, very passionately back and forth. And at the end of that meeting, the Planning and Zoning Board in Fairview voted not to recommend building the LDS temple as it is now, which is insanely high and insanely big, right? Do you remember the exact stats? We follow so many temples. I think it's 68 feet for the base of the temple, and then an additional 100 and...
So it's 173 feet, I think, total with the steeple, 68 foot to the top of the occupied space, and 44,000 square feet. This is being built in a residential area, which only allows 35-foot roofs, and that's the maximum height for the building. Also it's lit, all the other things. But you'll see that these residents have done their homework. They came prepared and ready to show why this should not be accepted. We should mention that you'll hear at the beginning, there was a meeting earlier in the day between the town commission and the town council and the LDS with their attorneys. They kind of agreed at that point that they would not vote on it that night and give them an extension. The church was expected to have tens of thousands of people from other communities come in from the Dallas area to come in to protest the temple and this decision. Fairview was having nothing of that. They were like, this is our town. We'll make the decision. It's a small town, like 1,100 people.
I think they said it was 1,100 people. And so we'd podcasted before about the LDS Church's call for 15,000 emails from all over to this one poor city manager in Fairview. And we had reports of this email requesting emails in favor of the temple. Idaho, missionaries were sending it out. It was just everywhere. And Fairview, like Landon said, nope, we just want to hear from people from Fairview. The church had also requested that LDS members in a wide area wear white shirts. Hey, we're both kind of wearing white shirts. I don't know what that means. And show up at the community building, which they even had to rent a bigger space. And at the very last minute, after these talks took place that Landon described with Curtin McConkie lawyers who flew in just for this, during these, behind the scene talks that were completely legal to have. I should stress that. I don't ever want to make it sound like these are secret meetings. Everybody follows the rules. they decided that probably a continuance would happen because several city council members were missing on a pre-planned vacation out of the country. So there really was not a lot of wiggle room in what they could approve and not approve, because in this town, they need a super majority to approve something like this. This is a huge protection. It means that all of them, almost all of them, have to be completely on board. So what happened, hearing that there might be a continuance, emails started to go out to LDS members that literally had the word "stand down," meaning you don't have to go. You don't have to go to this meeting. It's, you don't need to speak at this meeting. We're probably going to get a continuance. So at this particular meeting that we're going to play for all of you and comment throughout, there were not as many LDS people bearing testimony of the temple as you typically see, like in the planning and zoning meeting, because they had been told to stand down. They received notice. The Lord's hand is working. We're probably going to get a continuance. Don't show up. So there aren't as many, but there are enough to give you an idea of the kinds of things that are said. Do you think we've left anything out, Landon, or should we just start the recording?
I just want to say, because the planning commission voted no, you now need a super majority on the city council, which is 6 out of the 7 city councilmen. Only 5 city councilmen were there that night. So there's no way it could have ever passed that night, because there wasn't enough people to pass it. So that's another reason that they had to give a continuance.
Right. But I think they did know that some people had flown in a very special guest from out of the country, and other people had made arrangements to come. So they did let everybody speak. Although, as you'll hear at the end, it seemed like it already was decided that a continuance might be the best thing. So, but this is fascinating. Get your popcorn, get ready. We're just going to play it. It is audio, and we may pause here and there to answer questions that we received after the meeting initially played on Tuesday for other people that watched it or saw it on John DeLynn. So it's like Mystery Science Theater, right? We'll make some little comments here and there. But again, this is your government at work. You will see the residents know about drainage and dark skies and zoning and traffic. They have done hundreds of hours of homework about this building and why it's not appropriate the way it is to be built here. You will see the LDS residents basically talk about their feelings about the temple, which are valid. That's completely valid. But again, this is a meeting to decide, is it legal to build this here as you have presented it?
And as we've reported, that these buildings are tearing communities apart, yes. I think you're going to see that in this meeting. So it's really important to listen to. It's really quite fascinating. Most city council meetings aren't real, or town council meetings are not real interesting, but
and I will say I got some reports a day or so after of just some of the behaviors there, and the sort of the swarming of the white shirts, and just so many people, and the green shirts they're kind of referring to themselves now as green shirts. They have these awesome shirts that say "Keeping It Country," "Obey the Law of the Land," that kind of stuff. So green shirts and white shirts, there was some behavior that might not be conducive to having a civil dialogue, but we'll just play this and we'll see as we go along. So everybody listen up.
All right, now I'll get to the item that most of us are here.
I'm going to make one more thing. You are going to hear some beeps during this because we're going to be beeping out people's names and addresses that they have to report during that. So
that's true.
That's what you're hearing when you hear the beeps.
In order to speak, you have to state your name and your address, because as I said, people were ready to come from all over, and Fairview's like, nope, McKinney right next door or Fairview. That's who we want to hear from. Maybe a few special guests, but so the beeps, we're just trying to keep privacy for people.
Here for tonight, or many are here for tonight, and that is the proposal to build a temple over on Stacy Road near Meandering Way in Israel. You want to introduce that for us, please?
Who got me? Oh, there we go. Okay, so I'll be brief on here. I know we got a lot of speakers. So as everybody's aware, there's a request for approval of a conditional use permit for a religious facility. It's 8-acre site located north side of Stacy, west of Meandering, zone for RE11 Acre Range State District. So the applicants are here tonight requesting, again, a conditional use permit for a proposed temple on this site. On the screen is the provided building elevations. This has a 65-foot building height with a 173-foot spire. We have about 45,000 square feet of 2 usable interior spaces. The site also includes an ancillary building that includes mostly maintenance and groundskeeping. There is about a third of that building is designated for a center where folks that are visiting the temple with ceremonies in the temple can go and purchase robes and things like that associated with whatever type of ceremonies are going in the temple. They don't have paraphernalia and things that are designed for even at the meeting house or any other. So it's specifically associated with the temple use. So we have, let's see, here is the rendering that was provided. I think we've all seen this several times. Here is the elevations and the signage for what we're looking at. So there's a bunch of information in your packet regarding what you can do with this conditional use permit process. Again, a conditional use permit process is sort of like an overlay to the existing zoning, so you can amend or request different development standards associated with whatever's being asked for. So, like I said, I'm going to be brief. I think we all know what we're here for. I do want to update on the comments that I've received. So in the packet, we have, at least the packet says over 1,100. We're now easily over what I've been able to process. Let me be clear, what I've been able to process. The current numbers are about 1,250 total. 425 of those are Fairview residents, 51 are in support, 374, are in opposition. That does not include a petition that we gave y'all access to through that Dropbox with over 1,160 names on it. Of the remaining 800-ish, all of those are from folks outside of the town of Fairview. 695, 700 of those are in support, 126 are in opposition. Now, what's not included in there is the 13,500 email that I've received since we issued the packet on Friday.
Can you pause it for a second?
Clarify those or generalize.
Again, there you see the town manager. He was inundated with over 13,000 emails from people. And this is from that call that went out everywhere, mobilized. You will also notice the number of people right there from Fairview. There's a few supporting, but most of them are residents who are saying, no, we need to revisit this, which to me is very interesting. The other interesting thing is that the church, in a meeting that we got a recording of, knew exactly how many people had signed petitions, both paper and online. They knew how many members had signed it, and they were telling leadership, we need to get more. So they were definitely tracking those numbers, weren't they, Landon?
Yeah, and they knew which members had signed.
Yes.
So they were going after the members who had not signed. They knew them by name. So that's always concerning. And as you saw, Fairview residents, 425, I think he said, of 51 in support, 425 against. So overwhelmingly opposed to having it in their town. Of the townspeople, of course, the LDS Church will overcome you with numbers by ordering all of their members to send emails quickly. And these people are sending emails saying, oh, I'm in favor of the church, but they have no idea even what the issues are. So that's
exactly. So that missionary in Washington, I think I heard, that sent it all out. Please build that temple in Fairview. You're in Washington. Will that light be in your window? Will those walls be blocking your garden? I don't think so.
Absolutely.
Those, I would say that a vast majority of those are supportive emails that are not Fairview residents. So again, I'm sure there's questions. There's a lot of folks that want to speak, so I'm going to end it there. The P&Z did recommend full denial. So in case this means that we'll need at least 75% of the council to approve anything, which unfortunately needs 6.
Okay, thank you, Israel. So moving along, we would have the applicant. Does someone from the applicant, Richard, up and speak?
So this is someone from the church.
Council, my name is Richard Abernathy, 1700 Redbud, McKinney, Texas. On behalf of the applicant, we are seeking a continuance until August 2024 meeting of both the the application and also either a continuation or a renewal of the public hearing. And based on that, we're prepared to ask people who've come and supported that we know to limit their comments and give very few comments, if any, tonight, so that we'd have an opportunity, if necessary, in August.
Okay. Did you want to tell people why you wanted a continuance?
Yes, we would like a continuance so that we could continue a conversation we started today. We're looking towards attempting to find solutions to issues that the town has, and we're preparing to make some concessions and have more conversation with y'all. I think we had a wonderful conversation today with Dr. Hubbard and the mayor. I thought it was a productive meeting. We were encouraged by it. We look forward to coming back before the August meeting with more conversation and more possible offers. So that's our request. We'd like to find a solution to the issue.
Yeah, I have to say that this is very similar to what happened in Cody, and they did not come back with more possibilities or concessions or anything. They came back with the very same height requirements, and they hired lawyers, which is what we understand. The church has hired a local big real estate law firm. And so I think that kind of speaks to their intention of what they're going to use these 2 months for.
Yeah, I think the man that was speaking, I think, was their attorney. I think he's the one that spoke and threatened to sue them right at the beginning of the, I'm not positive on that, but I believe that's the same.
It sounds like the same guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is a workaround that they've used before. And you know, the town council may think, oh, they're going to come back with a revised plan that's going to fit more into our town. But experience shows from the temples that we've watched, this will not be the case. They will use the next 2 months to possibly personally threaten to sue members on the voting board. We know this has happened to the Planning and Zoning Committee in Cody, and they may also use this time to put together a lawsuit against the city. We don't know, but this is what we've seen before in other towns.
Yeah,
we're going to work with the town to get that.
Thank you, Richard.
Yes, sir.
So, just for everybody's benefit, what has been going on? Earlier today, we had a meeting with these gentlemen sitting over here, many of them from Salt Lake City, and we talked about what might be acceptable to the town without committing any one way, or they haven't committed either. But so we have suggested that we have 2 other churches in that area, and those 2 churches, one of which is an LDS meeting house, that the spire height be capped at 68 feet, and that the top of the building be 42 feet, 42% impervious coverage, and then the lighting we would have to have a conversation about after we see what they might come back with. They haven't committed to make changes, but they're going to go back and try to see if they can figure out a way to fit it into our parameters. So we appreciate that conversation we had today. So as Israel alluded to a little bit ago, tonight we have only 5 of us up here. 2 of our council members are out of the country, long-planned vacations. So out of tonight, we are able to basically, there's actually 4, but generally we can take 2 actions as we go through this hearing. We're going to give people a chance to talk, and I'll explain how that'll work. But our actions by the council tonight, we could go like the Planning and Zoning Committee did. We could deny it outright, with or without prejudice. That's technicality there. Or we could open the public hearing and we can let some folks speak about, because I know there's people here come from a long way away and other people that have spent a lot of time preparing for this. And we're gonna let some people speak, but at some point we're going to move towards, I'll ask for a motion from the council to continue the meeting. What that means is if you don't get a chance tonight to speak, you can come back in August. We will do this again in August, probably at the same place. And we'll give folks a chance to, who don't get the chance to speak tonight, to speak in August. I don't know how we identify one versus the other. We've never had this kind of crowd to deal with before, so we're kind of making this up as we go along. So let me see what else. So anyway, so I'm going to first ask the council, do you have any comments or anything? We had the applicant come up and ask for continuation. I don't know if there's any conversation you want to have about anything in detail that might be associated with his application, or we just go right to the public hearing. You okay with that? Okay. All right, so what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to open the public hearing. As we have names, and I will call people up. If you were at the P&Z meeting, you saw we had rushed to the microphone and stuff like that, and we actually had somebody get hurt. So we want to avoid that. So I will call people up at any time.
That's exactly what I was told this morning in an email, that, and this was the planning and zoning meeting, which they had not been told to stand down from that one. And there was a huge rush of people, and somebody was sort of hit inadvertently and knocked down, and there was an injury. So this is a heated, supercharged situation. It really is. And I keep thinking, if you find this interesting, Landon, okay, you're a citizen, you have the right to go to a council meeting or a planning meeting, and you have the right to speak and give your opinion and talk about an issue that you care about. So here you have a situation where the LDS members are citizens and they want to come speak, and yet they've been told to stand down. Don't come, you're not needed. It's just so interesting to have that layer of interference in the civic process. And of course, they're the ones that are, they do come to talk. You'll hear some of them tonight, but the majority of them said, I've been told not to, I will not. What do you think about that?
Yeah, it would seem if you're involved in the civic process from a, sectarian standpoint, that you would go to the meeting still and listen in if you're interested in it. Instead, you seem more like puppets that you come and go as the church tells you, and you participate in your civic duties based on how the church tells you.
Yes, totally agree.
If someone is on who I'm somewhat picking at random, I don't know many of these people, but I will try to get a mix of people who I know live in Fairview and people who I may be from another place, and we're trying to get a good mix of things here. There is one group that I want to acknowledge first, and I want to give them the first opportunity to get up and speak. And that is, we have a number of our ex-council members or mayors here tonight. And I wanted to give that those folks to come up, and as a group, we would not do this normally, but I'm going to break the rules here. We have the 3-minute rule, though, so everybody knows. That's one other thing I did not announce. Normally, when you come to a Fairview Town Council meeting, we give you 5 minutes to talk. We're very generous. If you go to some of our surrounding cities, you get 1 or 2 minutes. But because of the number of people here tonight, maybe the number of people that might speak, we're going to limit to 3 minutes. So a little bit different for us, but I think we can probably get things said in those 3 minutes. So,
former council member. Joining me this evening are 5 additional former council members. Collectively, we represent 60+ years of governance and service to the town of Fairview. We are here to address you regarding the conditional use permit submitted by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. But first, I would like to acknowledge the vast space community that we do have. Emmanuel Lutheran, Friendship Baptist, Creekwood United Methodist, Good Seed Korean Church, Faith Anglican, Mosaic Church, New Heritage Fellowship, Chase Oaks Church, and Church of Jesus of Latter-day Saints Meeting House. Fairview has always welcomed and continues to welcome faith community.
Love that. Sorry. Yeah. Can't help but love that.
No one can ever get that name right.
Because it's a freaky weird name. And that's why they're changing it to the Church of Jesus Christ to join the millions of other churches of Jesus Christ.
In the zoning residential 1 acre minimum. Height restriction in this zoning is 35 feet. LDS is asking for a height of 65 feet with additional height of 173 feet 8 inches to the top of the spire.
So huge.
5 times higher than is permitted in RE1 and 5 times higher than existing neighborhood residents in Fairview and Allen. If the CUP is approved, these long-established homes will be living in the shadow of the temple. Our town has proudly represented the motto of keeping it country. The vision of keeping it country was established in the early 90s when growth was happening all around us. The town leaders at the time, which Carolyn was one of them, wanted to ensure homeowners were protected by zoning and keeping Fairview unique with the trees, open space, and dark skies. Some have said, keep it country left when 7-Eleven came in. Others have said, how do you have country with a Macy's? The reality is, we are living the vision of keep it country that was set forward back in the 90s. Commercial with larger buildings will remain in the zoned commercial areas. Those preferring small lot homes is a subset of the commercial district. Further east in town, the lots are larger. Fairview offers something for everyone. So here we are today, Fairview United, keep it country, needing to defend our ordinances and asking you, council, to deny the request for this non-conforming building that prefers to be known as the McKinney Temple in Fairview and built in the backyards of our Fairview residents. We encourage the LDS community to revise their plans.
We ran out of time on yours. Does somebody else want to speak? Thank you.
We encourage the LDS community to revise their plans to meet the current zoning with any precedents already established.
Thank you, Renee.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Lester and Town of Fairview council members. I've been a Town of Fairview resident since 1995. I'm proud to be a part of this esteemed group speaking tonight, which, as you just heard, represents more, than 60 years of collective service to the Town of Fairview as elected officials. There is a precedence already in place in the Town of Fairview in both building, spire heights for religious facilities, and I believe those should be used to guide the decision process for this temple. That would mean a building height of 39 feet 10 inches as approved for Faith Church in 12/2/14, a spire height of 68 feet as approved for LDS Meeting House in 7/2/13. Further, I'd like to point out that based on previous decisions for other temples located in Texas, the LDS Church should consider the reduction of the overall footprint to be more in line with and respectful of the Town of Fairview's RE1 zone where they would like to build. For comparison, the Dallas Temple footprint is slightly smaller, but then again, Dallas is much larger than the Town of Fairview, and that dynamic should be taken into consideration. It is also worth mentioning that the footprint for this temple, as proposed in the Town of Fairview, is larger than temples in much larger cities such as Chicago, Manhattan, New York, Memphis, and Nashville, Tennessee, as well as international cities like Paris and Frankfurt. In fact, if you were to take the footprints of Manhattan, Memphis, and Nashville temples combined, they would only slightly exceed the footprint being requested for this temple. I really believe a temple with a smaller footprint that has been used in numerous other cities, in addition to complying with our existing building and spire heights for religious facilities, could provide a pathway for accommodating the LDS temple here in the Town of Fairview to more easily blend with the residential community. As a final point, you may have noticed I have used Town of Fairview numerous times in my comments. Where are we meeting tonight? Town of Fairview. This council serves the Town of Fairview and its residents. The temple is being requested to be built in the Town of Fairview. This is not McKinney. It is bad enough for LDS to try and place a grossly oversized building and spire into the middle of a residential neighborhood, but to name it the McKinney Temple is an absolute show of total disrespect and an affront to our residents and all that we, as elected officials, have worked on for over 30 years to not be like McKinney. I would think if the LDS Church would like to be good religious partners in the Town of Fairview, and I fully believe they want to, a name change to Fairview Temple, North Texas Temple, or Collin County Temple would be a much more welcoming approach to truly assimilate into the Town of Fairview environment. McKinney may be unique by nature, but the Town of Fairview is unique by design. I hope this council sees to it that it stays that way. Thanks for your time.
And I will say we see this a lot in temples. It's put in one city, named something else. I think it's a smoke screen, honestly, so residents can't figure out to the last minute what's being built where.
Mr. Mayor,
This town may really step in it. McKinney and Fairview have some kind of bad history with development.
Texas.
As I have reviewed and contemplated this matter, I continue to ask the question, what has changed in the relationship between the LDS Church and the town of Fairview? As many of you know, I was a member of the town's elected leadership team when the LDS meeting house was approved and built in the town of Fairview. I spent time with the LDS leadership to understand the needs of the meeting house, and I also spent time with our residents, not only listening, but hearing their concerns. Traffic, lighting, building size were all issues that were worked on together to find common ground within our code of ordinances. And with that common ground, we welcomed the meeting house to the same manner that we have welcomed other members of the faith-based community to the town of Fairview. Members of the council, as currently contemplated, there is no common ground on this matter. I, along with other elected officials, have worked tirelessly to always make sure that we do no harm and that our zoning ordinances only enhance the lifestyle of our residents. And the sheer height of this facility does not meet that standard. While you have a responsibility to discuss, deliberate, and debate the application, you also have the ultimate responsibility to decide what's in the best interest of our residents, especially those residents that are in close proximity to this facility. So what has changed? While I don't know the answer to that question, I do know that this application does not meet the standard of enhancing the lifestyle of our residents. And as such, I ask you to respectfully request that this application be denied and denied with prejudice.
Denied with prejudice means they can't bring it back for a year.
A whole year.
Denied, they can make changes and resubmit. So.
Thank you. Thank you all for your service, and thank you for your comments tonight. All right, I'm going to now go to my pile of names, and I'm going to pull one up that I know well.
Thank you, Mayor. This is my grandson, Blake, and I asked him to come up to just hold a few photos for us.
Sure.
First of all, Mayor and members of the council, I'm thankful for a few minutes to just express my feelings. Great question. You know, Mayor Culbertson stated is what has changed, right? The temple is the most sacred building for faithful members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. It's a place where sacred ordinances are held. The rooms, the size of the rooms, the beauty of those rooms, the height of those rooms, the way they're put together, and the steeple, and the size of the building is important in terms of our religious service, in terms of our worship there. So it all comes together to make a temple.
Can you pause it, Landon?
House, like we already have here, but a temple, like in the old days.
I just have to say that you're going to hear this over and over. First, it was just the height of the spire that everybody was asked to really push. We need that. We need that. Recently, we've now been hearing from lawyers and people like this gentleman, the walls, the mass of the walls. What do you think that means? Why are they pushing that?
I have no idea. Mass usually refers to Catholic things, not Mormon, but I have no idea why a mass of the wall would be important to anybody.
Yeah. No, we've heard this phrase. We heard it at a recorded meeting from Curtin McConkie lawyers that came to talk to leadership. They will only say this because they need it for some kind of legal maneuver. Again, the bottom line here is the RLUIPA Act, I can't even say it now anymore. Yes, the Religious Land Use and Incarcerated Person Act, which if you can prove that something is absolutely essential to your worship, you cannot be discriminated against. And, no one can stop you from building it. So hence, big ass steeple is part of our worship. And now mass of the walls. I'm sure we'll find out what that's about, but we've heard it from many other people and we're hearing it here, the mass of the walls.
Big ass walls and big ass steeples. That seems to be what we're talking about.
Yep.
Synagogues, and you had the temple. There was a difference, big difference. Okay. We've lived here in Fairview for 38 years. We love it. It's a great community. And we raised our kids here. They went to the Lovejoy High School. The old Stein that was Fairview Keeping a Country, one of our Eagle Scouts, Matt Godfrey was over here on Highway 5 and Stacy until he built 7-Eleven, as was said earlier. Well, how do we solve this? I mean, we love this place, the temple, and we would like to build it. And we think where we've asked to build it is a perfect location. If you note, most of our temples are built in residential areas. Why? Because the peace and serenity there complements the peace and reverence of the work that goes on in a temple. As I look out my porch, right, I used to see a horse farm there where young girls would come and put their helmets on and jump over the obstacles and things like that. Now I see a Sloan Creek School.
Is it over 200 feet high, though? Is it? And I understand this gentleman, I think, lives about 7 miles away from the temple location.
I know Sloan Creek School looks like, so we'll leave that out. See if we can find that.
Jay, just remember you got.
And they are putting up posters and things like that. They're having people. In this case, this
Not as
gentleman
fun
is
to look
having
at
his
as the
son
farm,
hold up a
but
poster.
everybody needs schools, right? When I look out to the right side, what do I see? I see our water tower.
Which is shorter than the temple.
It's up there, right? Is that my favorite view? No. But we all have to share and give a little bit. So I look at a water tower in a school.
Of course, the water tower and school serve the entire community.
Exactly. And are not a mass, right? A water tower, you can see through it, and a school has a low roof line.
And, we look at things that may not be our very favorite, but they're beautiful. This will be gorgeous to look at. I promise. Now, time.
Yeah, thank you very much for your comments.
We hit this right here, 154 feet.
Let somebody else deal with that.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, as we pointed out, number one, a water tower is necessary. Nobody would have any water pressure. Right. So, there's things you have to build as part of your infrastructure. It's like saying there's guy wires that are too high, you've got to build things.
And it's not as tall
for the community.
Douglas Logo, is that his name?
This is important. I'm sure a lot of you already knew our own Nemo the Mormon flew in from the UK to address. There we go.
I traveled here from Oxford, England. I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I'm a graduate of the Church's seminary program. I'm a returned missionary, and I'm also the UK's leading commentator on the Church. There are 3 simple points that need to be made here, particularly in response to the claim being made that the height of the steeple is part of our religious observance. 1, temples do not need a steeple. 2, the steeple does not have to be a certain height. And 3, architectural design is secondary to the temple's primary purpose. The Church currently has 199 temples that are either operating, being refurbished, or awaiting dedication. All of these are equal in their value to Latter-day Saint worship. They all provide access to the same covenants and ordinances. And there are several prominent examples of temples with no steeple at all. Mesa, Arizona, Cardston, Alberta, Leh, Hawaii, and most recently, Paris, France. Of those temples that do have a steeple, the shortest is just 54 feet in Freiburg, Germany. In fact, almost 90% of the Church's temples have a steeple shorter than what is being proposed here in Fairview at 173 feet and 8 inches. It is eminently acceptable to the Church in almost 90% of cases to have a steeple shorter than what they're asking for here in Fairview. The shortest temple the Church has ever built is the Paris, France temple at just 42 feet tall with no spire, no steeple. Yet it has a square footage of 44,175 square feet, the same as the proposed temple in Fairview. Steeple height, therefore, cannot be argued by square footage. And speaking of the Paris, France temple, presiding bishop of the Church, Gerard Corset, said, "There are a number of constraints that we have, the code that we have to respect. But in the end, it is only good because it makes for a temple that everybody accepts and recognizes as theirs." The presiding bishop of the LDS Church publicly declared that respect for planning code and constraints is a good thing because it makes for a temple that everybody accepts and recognizes as their own. Where is that attitude here? Furthering Bishop Corset's point, the Church has said a temple's design, both internal and external, is secondary to its primary purpose. The prophet and president of the Church, Russell M. Nelson, said more plainly in 2022, it's not the location, it's not the architecture, it's the ordinances inside. I've heard many claims that this steeple variance is required by LDS beliefs, and that's simply not the case. The president of the Church has said otherwise. The actions of local leaders are not in harmony with the teachings of the prophet of the Church. And I don't know why they're ignoring the plain teachings of the president of the church. But what I can say categorically is, as a member of this church, steeple height has never mattered. I have known throughout my entire membership of church that some temples have steeples and others do not. I think LDS Apostle David A. Bednar summarized it best in April 2023, just last year, when he said regarding temples, who cares what size it is if you have access to the same covenants and ordinances? And thank you very much.
That was so awesome to hear from Nemo.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting when you start looking at, Kazi saying about the zoning codes, and the gentleman said we put them in residential areas. Well, they put them in residential areas so that no one can build anything large around next to them. So that's why they're doing it.
Yep. And then they change the codes there. That's exactly what's happening.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. I want to publicly thank you for allowing this opportunity to have a voice and to speak for our city's future. My name is Michelle Countryman, and my family, who consists of 5 children, my husband and I, have been residents of Fairview for 7 years. I've been a nurse for 20 years, and 5 of those years were in the Lovejoy School District. I love our community and its people, especially the kids, since I served them and had a chance to be their school nurse. I am proud to be a resident of Fairview, even though we've had our struggles. When we first moved here, my oldest started 7th grade and was terrified of starting middle school as a new kid. She made some great friends, but was heavily bullied by another group of kids. They went as far as to opening a fake Instagram account that looked like it belonged to my daughter and posted pictures from an old family blog to make fun of her. My daughter was mortified, so she texted the boy that seemed to be the primary culprit and asked him to remove this account. He said no, and that, quote, every effing Mormon should die, end quote. Where are these children learning such hate? Then just a few days ago, my 13-year-old son and his 14-year-old friend went door to door as citizens of Fairview and Lovejoy students to collect petition signatures for the temple. My son was bombarded with rude, hateful, and angry words about his religion by grown adults. My 13-year-old son. Then later I read on social media that our very own mayor accused me, as I took it that way, of, quote, those young boys have been lied to, what some call lying for the Lord. I was at the P&Z meeting and prepared to share very personal or heartfelt comments intended for my Fairview friends about why the temple meant so much to me. But everyone here already knows what that meeting turned out. But to enlighten those who weren't there in attendance, we were booed, told to be quiet when to speak, interrupted multiple times with no support from the committee, and called names like unneighborly and bullies, and told shame on you to our face with fingers pointed. This P&Z meeting brought back my family's struggles when we first came here, and had since moved here, that we continue to follow us through our Fairview resident experience. So yes, I'm here to speak to you because my family and I are members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and I respectfully, I am not here to shame or call you unneighborly, but I'm here to call attention to this. I want you to know that we have no intentions to be unneighborly, and I am sorry you are feeling like we have been bullies. We are standing up for ourselves because we need a temple in Fairview. Fairview needs this temple. The temple will bring peace to this area and for all its residents, regardless of their religion. Thank you.
Pause. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. And again, this is just one of the standard thought process. I am very disturbed by young children being sent out into this, it's a hotbed out there. The kids don't know. They don't understand the nuance of these issues. Why were children sent out to gather signatures when this issue is so hot?
Yeah, that you send your lawyer to a community meeting to introduce the temple, and the first thing you tell them is, if you don't accept this, we're going to sue you.
Yes.
Upsetting all of your neighbors, and then you send children out to gather signatures from those very neighbors to support this temple that they've been threatened that they're going to be sued over. That just doesn't seem like a wise idea. But that is the Mormon way, is you send your kids out to teach them to be persecuted for their religion, and that people just saying that I don't want to sign that petition, or I don't, young man, I don't think you understand all of the issues here. And then they look at that as being persecuted. I'm sorry to hear the story about her daughter.
Exactly. Was that what she's saying? Those were not Mormon kids? Was that what she was alluding to?
I believe that's what she was saying, and that was years ago when there wasn't a temple, so it has nothing to do with the temple.
Okay.
And I think
I can tell some stories of bullying by Mormon kids.
Yes,
oh my goodness.
I think we all can.
It's just not a good argument. Yeah, but
I think anyone
it's so sad.
Yeah, I think anyone can tell a story about their kids being bullied by somebody.
Yeah.
Not a way to me to gain favor in the community is go and tell them all that they're all persecuting you as members of the church. So as we stated, she just said it was going to be a peaceful, calm place, and that Fairview needed it. Well, this has erupted Fairview. How is this a calming, peaceful thing that Fairview seemed to be really well off, and everyone seemed to be very neighborly before they came and grossly exaggerate? Other churches have asked to build there, and this didn't happen. The LDS have a church right next to the spot where they're going to build the temple. It's sharing the parking lot. So they have been welcomed in when they came in and met the zoning laws like stake centers and LDS ward houses do. They have to meet this, but for some reason, because it's a temple, they seem to think that they get a pass and can do whatever they want. And that is where the residents get upset. And we see it in town after town after town. And we even saw the church's lawyer in the leadership meeting on tape that we put out, where he specifically said that citizens and communities seem to get upset when you build these tall, high, light buildings in their neighborhoods. Well, then why are you doing it? That's not good neighborly, but they are going to push this narrative. So
well, and as she said, we need this. And that's the attitude in every city we follow. Yes. You'll understand the blessing of it later, but right now we need it and we've got to get it. And I will say, in that meeting that Landon described that was taped, they also warned the people, the LDS people, how to act if the Fairview residents were to yell, shout, or spit on them. So already this persecution complex, where I've talked to enough residents at enough of these meetings, this is not what happens. This is not what happens. If anything, the residents themselves are overwhelmed by the sheer number of LDS people dressed in blue shirts in Lone Mountain, white shirts here. Wait for the August meeting. Like I said, they were told to stand down here. There were thousands of them coming from I want to say all corners of the earth. I'm sure it wasn't that. But again, I'm so sorry that residents are saying shame on you, but I understand that. Shame on you. Please work within our town laws, our zoning regulations. Be a good and peaceful neighbor. Don't do this. You're ripping the community apart.
And unfortunately, it's the people that live there, the good, common people who live in these neighborhoods, who are taking the brunt of this.
Yeah.
And to have the kids go around, knock the doors, why doesn't the church's lawyers go around and knock on the doors? Why doesn't the general authorities and the area reps and the stake presidents go around and do this? Instead, they send the kids out to do it.
Yeah. Right. So yeah, we said a lot about that one, but there was a lot there. So, and again, I'm sorry about bullying. That's, nothing to even joke about, but I'm sorry those kids were put in the position to even go out and canvass. A church should not do that to children.
I'm being honest that I'm choosing people who live in Fairview first, just so you know that. If we have time to get to the others, there's a handful of people that wanted to speak from other towns. I'll try to get to them, but I'm trying to get Fairview people first. So Ms. Kaiser, please go ahead.
For 25 years. I'm speaking for someone named Marla who cannot be here tonight. So this is what she wrote. My name is Marla Ballard. I live at 130 Horseshoe Bend in Fairview. I've lived in Fairview for 21 years. I'm speaking to you today because I love Fairview and I want to preserve the peace and charm of our small town, which is the reason we moved here. Zoning is important because it produces consistency and predictability. As home buyers, we researched the local zoning before we bought our homes. We did this to be sure we were making sound investments and to have confidence we would be able to enjoy the peaceful sanctitude that only a home can provide. Zoning also gives us the reasonable expectation that these rights won't be trampled by callous and unrestrained development. The purpose of zoning is to protect, yet somehow here we are in this room seeking protection. Why is the largest temple in Texas being shoehorned into a residential area of Fairview? This temple will be larger and taller than every temple in the state of Texas, including the temples in Dallas, Houston, Austin, San Antonio, and Fort Worth. If approved, the roof of this temple will be taller than our town hall, and the steeple will be the tallest structure in Fairview. Well, the LDS Church has every right to apply for a CUP. The height variance they're requesting is extreme and unneighborly. Just look at the scaled renderings in this room. We welcomed the LDS in 2013, and we would like to welcome the new addition. However, the variance they are seeking is obtrusive and quite frankly disrespectful to the residents of Fairview. Churches are not exempt from reasonable zoning restrictions. Height restrictions are not a substantial burden to the religious observance of Mormons because dozens of smaller and shorter temples exist here in Texas, across the U.S. and around the world. This town of Fairview is duty-bound to consider the damaging effects of this giant structure on our small-town atmosphere, aesthetics, night skies, wildlife, skyline, and traffic. Please, I implore you, stand up for zoning. Protect the residents of Fairview from a structure so imposing, so large, and so dominating that it will forever alter the fabric of Fairview. Thank you.
That was great. She talked all about the zoning, and she's absolutely correct.
It's one of the things you'll see over and over. They're going to present the zoning issues.
Good evening. My wife and I have been residents of the town of Fairview for 20 years. I'll be speaking to you this evening regarding the proposed roof height for the LDS structure. I also addressed this item during the P&Z meeting. The proposed LDS building roof height is 65 feet. The tallest building height precedent granted for a religious facility by the town of Fairview is 39 feet 10 inches back in 2019. Just a side note, the residents in 2019 had concerns with that approved height and discussed it with the church leaders, and the leaders finally decided to lower the building height to 24 feet. Now that's what I call being neighborly. The LDS proposal was requesting an additional height variance of 25 feet 2 inches over that 39 feet 10 inches for the total of 65 feet. That's 63% higher than the current precedent. That is extreme. My concern has nothing to do with the LDS organization. As we all know, there is already an existing structure in that area. And to be honest with you, it fits quite nicely in our community. My issue is the current proposal submitted blatantly exceeds the building height precedent, as well as several other ordinances the town has in place to protect its residents. With at least one of the items in the proposal, LDS is attempting to use religious symbolism as the reason for its variance request. Well, there's no religious symbolism for a 65-foot building height that I can think of, other than them just wanting it to be that height. I'm quite certain if I bring to the P&Z committee a conditional use permit requesting approvals for some type of variance on my property with the argument that, yeah, I just want it, it would ultimately be denied. I can see no reason or benefit to the town that would warrant an increase to the current building height precedent in a residential zoned area. The proposed LDS structure is only entitled to the current precedent setting cup of 39 feet 10 inches, not an inch more. I don't see any reason why any increase in building height should be approved on this structure or any other structure in a residential zoned area. Precedents matter for decades into the future. It's pretty cut and dry that the proposed LDS building height exceeds our residential ordinances and existing precedent and should be denied. From a building height perspective, this cup should not be considered until it aligns with the town's existing building height precedent of 39 feet 10 inches. As I mentioned in the P&Z meeting, this decision will determine the future skyline of our small town of 11,000 residents. I'm asking the town council to abide by the ruling set forth by the P&Z committee and deny the cup in its current state until it meets all the standards of the current Fairview zoning ordinances and precedents. I just hope you, as our town leaders, are strong enough to.
Thank you, Steve.
And this is a great point. I don't know if you want to pause it for a second. For example, in Heber, the all LDS or predominantly LDS county commission overturned all of the regulations for height and lighting in the county there to allow the temple. And now what's happening there, Landon?
Yeah, now other developers have come in and said, we want to build tall too. And
we want that too.
Allowed it for the LDS. You need to allow it for us.
Yep. So when this gentleman said, you know, we are thinking about the skyline of the future, that's exactly it. You can't just make a concession for one building. Although in Heber, remember, then they said, going forward, then we will look at things on a case-to-case basis or something like that. No, you can't. And these developers, they're like, hey, we want the same. They flat out said, we want the same consideration that the temple got. We want that height. We want that light. We want everything. So they are not wrong here in Fairview to protect the town with the existing codes that everyone has agreed on. And if that gentleman were to come in and say, I want to add even something really small to your house, you have to get the approvals. It has to fit in. I had to laugh because in Heber, there was an article about how the council was going around and around about a 20-foot sign that a Smith's was trying to build. Ooh, they were so upset and they were trying to figure that out. And we just shook our heads because 288 feet, isn't that what it is? Or
213, I think.
213, that's right. 88,000 square feet, 213, without the batting an eye, changed all existing zones and codes for the last 20 years to let that temple in. But a 20-foot Smith sign, so it is very interesting to see.
The other point they're making here, because the church is trying to use the Relupi law to build this and say that it's religious symbolism lets us build this higher. The point they're making is every other church in the town, no one's built over 39 feet. Someone asked for a variance of 39. People had a lot of problems with that, and the church voluntarily lowered their roof line to 24 feet in their design. So that's what they're saying is good neighbors, is these guys are trying. All the other churches that are asking for variances aren't getting them. And now the LDS church is saying we are entitled to it by law. Well, the same law says you can't favor one church over the other. That's why they're saying this is the tallest height any church has been approved to. That needs to be the same height that the LDS church is approved to.
Yep. And then, of course, the LDS church is arguing, no, that same law, Relupa, says that if it's essential to our worship to have that steeple, you've got to let that pass. So there's a little back and forth there. And unfortunately, when any of these things go to court, it's not clear. It can kind of go either way. So it does put the town in a very difficult position. If it were to come to legal action, they don't know exactly how a suit would line up. But you can, I think you explained it absolutely clearly, Landon. Those are the two sides. You are not allowed under that law to give one religion special treatment over the other. And you're also not allowed to not let them do something that's essential to their worship. So the church is really using this mass of the walls, steeple, and lighting to say, we can't do it without this. Of course, everybody else like Nemo is saying, there are 11 other temples that don't have spires or that kind of size. Are we now going to be sent back into those because our ordinances were not valid? Our marriage isn't valid? No, you can worship in a temple that does not have this mass and size and light. That's not what they're claiming.
And that's what this is all about. Yeah.
That's what this is all about. It's not just about steeples.
Respecting a 3-minute time limit. Somebody was going to say something?
Yes, the previous speaker card that was called for Susan, she's in the room.
Oh, okay.
My husband and I are retired. I'm not going to go. I agree with what everybody has said about the building being simply too large for the area that they're trying to put it in. I do not appreciate the fact that they have brought a lot of people in from evidently Europe and all over the place that don't live here to try to convince you to do away with the planning and zoning.
I don't think she heard Nemo's speech.
Yeah,
I don't think she recognized that he was there to speak for the residents. In fact, brought in by the residents.
Build the temple, it needs to be considerably smaller. They've already pointed out that there is no height where there's no restriction that they have to follow. They're not all uniform. So why they are choosing to do this in this area, I have no idea. However, I do want to point out one thing that I have not heard anybody else bring up. the public will not be allowed into that building. If anybody who is not a Mormon in good standing wants to go to the building next door, that's allowed. But that temple, if you are not a Mormon in good standing, you are not allowed in that building. Therefore, not only are they bringing that into the city, and I consider it a monstrosity, but most of the people that live here wouldn't even be allowed inside anyway. So
you can go to the lobby.
Yeah.
That's all I want.
They keep stressing that. You can go in the lobby.
I'm pleased to be gathered with what I believe are many of the finest people in Fairview, regardless of what position they hold on this particular topic. I'd like to offer a couple of observations. I did go to the Lovejoy Elementary School. At that time, we were not big enough to have a middle school or high school. We relied on a neighboring Allen district, right, to provide that for us. I believe this is an opportunity for our city to look at this from a different perspective, to be neighborly to those around us. Fairview is an aspirational place for many people to live or to visit. To be able to live in Fairview represents a dream. It certainly was a dream growing up here. But many people aspire to be here. I believe that this building and its grounds in particular will provide a place of peace where people can come and enjoy the temple. I have one other comment about the exterior of a temple, a building like this. As a teenager, having excellent teenager judgment, I ended up literally clinging to the side of a precipice, looking down into a valley hundreds of feet below.
Sounds like a scout outing gone bad.
And I realized I was going to be there for the night. Search and rescue was notified. They were unwilling to try to issue any effort to come and collect me during the night. Where do you go when you are alone in the night? Hopefully your thoughts go to your loved ones. I know mine did. To my home, to my hometown. As I was there, I turned, and the only thing that I could recognize as I looked down was a temple building. Not this one.
That tells you how bright they are, that he could see it from the mountains 30 miles away.
Yeah, from a cliff.
They said, "Were you lost?" And I said, "No, I could always see the temple." They told me that staying there on that precipice that night and staying put was the safest thing I could have done. I am grateful for the physical exterior of a temple and that it is lit during at least a portion of the night.
Light.
I am not responsible for any of this design, but I do know this has been designed to comply with the residential lighting requirements. I leave this with you for your consideration. Fairview is an amazing place. I'm so grateful to be a part of it. I'm grateful to share it with all of these neighbors, and I hope we can host those that aspire to live like Fairview. It will enhance its identity as a desirable place to live. Thank you. Thank you, Jason.
Yeah, again, strong feelings about the temple. And that's what's so sad. These are real strong feelings, but that doesn't make a difference when we're talking about the zoning codes and the laws and the regulations and the look and feel of the town, unfortunately.
And I think this is part of what the church has been telling the people. Oh, tell them about the temple and your experiences with the temple. Right. And that's not what the council wants to hear. No. That's not what the planning and zoning council wanted to hear. They wanted to hear, why should this be allowed that's so big? And he evidently said, well, in case you're lost on a cliff in the middle of the night,
you can find it.
The one point you can see from forever and hone in on while you're waiting for rescue. So
right. Well, and it's interesting because of the planning and zoning board and in Lone Mountain at their meeting going through the same thing. We definitely saw people bearing testimony of the temple, feelings like that. But in the meeting that we received a recording of, where Curtin McConkie lawyers were coaching leadership, how to tell their people how to address these councils, I think they definitely got the sense that that wasn't working, wasn't so effective anymore, just to bear testimony and be very emotional about the temple. You do have to talk about, they mentioned the architecture and the structure. And so they're kind of changing the way that they're approaching it now. It's not just feelings. However, I ask any of them, tell me a legal reason why you should be able to disregard this town's zoning codes to such an extreme. I understand variances and working back and forth, but to be so beyond what they've granted to any other religion, I guess all you really have left are feelings to talk about, because there's no legal reason that would be allowed.
Yeah, exactly.
Good evening, Mayor, Councilman. Thank you for your service. My wife, Alicia, and I have been residents since 2014. We moved to Fairview for the large lots and the keeping it country motto, even though some here think that that's no longer the case. I oppose the CUP as it is currently written. I don't
Conditional
mind
use permit to make a change to existing laws.
I just want them to follow the zoning restrictions for building height as defined by our town building ordinances and past precedent. Steve mentioned the building height. I want to talk about the steeple. Regarding the steeple height, current city ordinances restrict building height to 35 feet. However, architectural features such as spires and steeples have been approved to greater heights than 35 feet and serve as a precedent. That said, the precedents given by the applicant do not apply. Examples are, number one, the two existing Fairview water towers and the radio tower have been used as reference for maximum building height, but they're not relevant because they don't have occupants. And they're also in RE1 zones, they don't apply. Number two, the 4-story town hall has also been used as a reference for maximum building height, but it also does not apply because it's located in a commercial zone. It does not apply. Lastly, the Creekwood United Methodist Church has also been referred to as a precedent for a maximum steeple height of 154 feet. However, the height was not approved by the town of Fairview and was not constructed. The current Creekwood United Methodist Church has a steeple feature height of 55 feet, 5.5 inches from the ground level. All of those do not apply as precedent. Currently, the tallest steeple in an RE1 zone of the town of Fairview is at a height of 68 feet from ground level. This special privilege of 68 feet was granted to the LDS already. This is the height of their steeple, the existing LDS meeting hall. My recommendation is that you do not approve the CUP until it meets a maximum building height of 3910, like Steve mentioned, and with a steeple height of only 68 feet, not an inch more. They've already been given the special privilege of having the highest steeple in town. They don't need more privileges than that. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a very good point. They bring up that Methodist church quite a bit, don't they, Landon? Did you want to talk any more about that right here?
Yeah, they do. And the LDS
we've had this question a lot, which is why we're going to take 1 second to address it, because unfortunately, I think the church's lawyers feel that might have been granted. It was worded in a way at the initial meetings, this was years ago, where there was some confusion. But as the gentleman just said, this was not accepted. This was not passed at what they required. So it should not be used as an example.
Yeah, I'm going to pull this up here and you can see this is the Creekwood United Methodist Church that the LDS keep arguing, hey, they applied for 153 foot steeple. And they said that was granted. Well, it was not granted. There was some wording that sent it back to the planning zone where the city council said, we're okay with it. And then when it went back to the planning commission, they said no. So it was not accepted. Here it is. They requested a 154 foot tall tower, and it was rejected on September 5th of 2006. Mm-hmm. They also requested a 38 foot building roof height, which was approved at the same meeting. However, they then lowered that height per that conversation that we just had. So here you see on the left is the plans that they had for this giant steeple. Just like the LDS, you can see it's clearly out of, doesn't make sense to have something that tall.
So out of proportion.
And on the right, you have a picture of it as built. And there's a picture of it, and it's currently at 54 feet. It's smaller than the LDS Stake Center is right now.
And not lit.
So again, you see that in order to be fair between all of the religions, the town has a responsibility to reject this because they rejected the Creekwood United Methodist Church's steeple that was that height as well. And I don't think the Creekwood United Methodist Church sued the town and tried to bankrupt it and sent their lawyers in and bullied them. They said, we'll be good neighbors, and they lowered the steeple. That's what being Christian-like means in most places. So
yeah, and we hear that over and over. Please be a good neighbor. Please respect our neighborhood. Please respect our town. Those are the words that we hear over and over.
Yeah, so I just we had several people ask what what happened with that, and that's why we wanted to bring that up and show that. So okay.
Going through the Fairview names, and many of them I do not know.
We've been here since 2004. My in-laws are actually in River Oaks at 751 Timberwood Lane and have been here since I believe 1988 or 87. My husband went to the old Allen High School when it was small, so we've been out here for a really, really long time. I would ask the council to deny this petition as far as with prejudice also. I would ask you to deny the continuance. This is ripping our town apart. We need to have some healing. We are in a situation now where there's Mormons in this community that have been our friends and neighbors, and they're pitted against us. There's a lot of lying and deceit and misinformation that has been given to residents of Fairview. I know the one woman talked about her daughter and what happened to her. And I know all of us, doesn't matter what religion you are, have issues with kids with bullying. That's just something that happens. But, the kids went around and were knocking on doors for petitions. And I know someone who told me that when they went around, and I get that they probably didn't realize what they were saying.
Exactly.
But what was said, I don't know that was her son's, by the way, it could be somebody else, that is really not that big. They're making it seem like it's a lot bigger than it is. It's really not that big. Would you sign our petition?
No, it's that big.
That's not telling the truth. It is as big as they say. I would ask that this council does not compromise on this issue. This needs to be put to bed. This needs to be denied with prejudice. Let them come back in a year and come back with something that is no bigger than what they currently have, which is the maximum that this council already has given them a variance for and already made an exception for them. Let's not make that go further and be more. Thanks.
Yeah. So she's saying, please don't put this off till August. Our town can't take it.
Yeah.
We already have divisiveness, and again, this is in every town. Cody, Heber, Lone Mountain. We watch everything from the beginning. Everybody's, let's just get along. We can be a good neighbor too. What is happening to us? It is really tragic to see.
Hey, Brooke, pull the mic down just a little.
Because I'm short. It's okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I know. It's all right. Dealt with it my entire life.
No, their problem was they're tall. You're not. You're perfect. Okay.
So as a taxpayer of this beautiful town, I'm here to express that I am against the temple being built as planned. However, first, I want to start by saying myself and my family are not against your religious beliefs. We are against your lack of respect for the city of Fairview, their zoning and planning regulations and laws. As much as we love having you all as neighbors, we are willing to not have you as neighbors if it means upholding the regulations put in place by the city of Fairview to keep it as quaint, peaceful, and as country as we can in today's world. 2 years ago, my husband and I moved our family from Lucas to Fairview. Not far, but much more of what we were hoping for. We bought a home on 3 acres, which I know some of you have had to deal with me a lot. But we built a home. I mean, we didn't build it. We bought a home on 3 acres that desperately needed to be remodeled, or should I say gutted. We went through the whole permitting process with the city, learned all the regulations and laws when it came to building and zoning and planning and permitting and what we could do, what we couldn't do, what was required to get our permit. And may I say, they graciously helped answer any and all questions we had along the way. Yes, it was a pain. But in the end, I appreciated the process, and I know my neighbors did too. We are proud to call Fairview our home, proud to uphold its laws and regulations and the like in order to continue to live in this area as it was planned to be. Our town hall is our beacon of pride, one might say, for Fairview. It's a beautiful building, and it serves every one of its residents and has the answers you might be looking for. However,
You knew and you know the laws and the regulations of our town, yet keep pushing for building this temple, which far surpasses our town hall in terms of height and, of course, lighting. And it's not for everyone. However, our town hall is in a business district, not residential. And we hear from your patrons its height and massiveness will bring them peace. Well, there was a veteran that spoke last month at the town hall, and I do not know him, and I do not know his name. But if he's here, your story was not lost on me.
That's our friend.
And I'm here to speak for him. He lives behind where this building is proposed. And as I said, I don't remember his name, but being a wife of a former Army officer, his story was not lost on me. And therefore, let me say, to be neighborly is to understand this man served our country, fought for the freedoms we all have to be able to speak freely in support of or opposition of this temple. This gentleman stated he sought out that property because it brought him peace for himself and his family. Doesn't that mean more? It should. With grace and heart, be neighborly.
Go ahead and finish up.
Thank you. Therefore, I ask that if this temple is to be built, that it does not cause this town to have to approve a new CUP, that you abide by our regulations already in place on the books. If this is not something your church is willing to do because you are not able.
Brooke, we need to stop it there. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
People are very passionate. No, and she said it perfectly. I mean, I think I heard on, I think it was Ward Radio that was talking about this whole issue, and somebody said, you can build what you want. You own the property. That is not correct. That is not
Everyone
correct.
has to abide by the same rules.
To protect everyone. That's the whole point.
And she had a great point. I had to follow all these rules, and you know what the rules are. Why didn't you design two of the rules?
Well, we know why, because of our Peruvian episode, don't we? Where
They
we
know
had someone who
they will
talked to a
change the
temple
rules.
building committee, and they said, oh, it's easy in residential areas. We go in there and we just switch the codes, and it's the way that it happens.
Is it going to be up on the screen so everybody else can see it?
No, looks like they're showing some graphics and
Yeah,
schematics.
this is the one I think he was passing out.
Oh, passing something out. I love how each resident has some different angle that they're talking about. And I don't mean angle in a bad way. I mean, have you thought about this? Or what about this?
About the lighting. What about
the lighting or the sewage or the
sewer,
septic or the
traffic?
animals or the, yeah, it's very impressive. The amount of research they've had to get up to speed so quickly.
My wife and I moved here for the promise of the town. It provides, including quality public schools, a peaceful country lifestyle facilitated by ordinances that required large lots and protections for our dark skies and local fauna. We've lived here 24 years, and in that time, our ordinances have been honed to accommodate creative residential and commercial development whilst protecting our unique rural environment, not only for the enjoyment of our family and friends, but also accommodation for the diverse wildlife population that lives and thrives here. Examples include insects, amphibians, reptiles, songbirds, owls, raptors, and a whole host of feral and domesticated animals, many of which depend upon the dark environment supporting their nocturnal needs and behaviors. Think dark skies and fireflies. As submitted, this lighting plan calls out 16 different light sources. 3 of these light sources are intended to light the parking lot and walkways. The remaining 13 light sources are intended to illuminate the 173-foot structure. Note, of the 13 light sources illuminating the structure, the lighting plan presently lacks any specification or implementation details for 8 of these light fixtures. There's also nothing in the submitted plan that explains how the operating hours and after-hours lighting levels are to be achieved. However, as submitted, we can begin to get a sense of where we stand in terms of the lighting budget for this site. As submitted, the total lumens, shielded and unshielded, for the lights with some specifications was at 394,956 lumens. The town ordinance permits 400,000 lumens. Ergo, there's about 5,004 lumens remaining. However, we still need specifications for the remaining 8 light sources called for in the submitted plan. In addition, we need details for 9 of those light sources. As submitted, the total lumens for the unshielded up-facing lighting, i.e. those lights that illuminate the 173-foot structure and its architectural features, was at 98,956 lumens. The town ordinance permits a total of 80,000 lumens for this site, so the plan already exceeded the maximum unshielded limited lumens by 18,956 lumens. Now, I understand some modifications have been sent to James, but they credit themselves
Every time
zero
he says lumen,
uplighting.
I think of Lumen
I want to point you
Walters,
to the lighting
I
ordinance.
was thinking the same thing.
the magician that Joseph Smith learned so much
Talk
from.
about the improper use of light fixtures, shielded and unshielded. We have to turn about 6 of those pages to get to this section.
You're gonna run out of time.
Yeah, I want to point you to one thing. The uplighting is prohibited in residential zones. And if you take a look at this image, this shows how they're going to uplight the side of this building. I did a calculation today on the back of the napkin, just estimating what the 0.3 albedo would be.
Okay.
And it's 557,000 lumens that would reflect off this building.
Okay, Gary, thank you, Gary.
Thank you.
We can all testify of that. Anyone
Neighbors
who's
have no idea. Yeah, they.
how
I mean,
many
you hear
lumens
it might be
reflect.
light.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's one
I
thing to
had to
say.
buy blackout blinds for my children's windows because we live a mile
Yes.
from a temple.
Dr.
And they couldn't
James
sleep.
Here. Every resident in my old neighborhood.
That's true. That's true. So we lived here for my family about 22 years. And this has been a wonderful place for us to raise our family. We moved here from Dallas. It was crowded, congested. We've always had acreage, and we've enjoyed that. We had the sign keeping it country. It's changed a lot, but I think it's changed in a good way. I enjoy the amenities. I like to have more than one store that we could go to, and all the stop signs are on Station Road that were 10 cars deep when I had to go to the hospital. So I've enjoyed that blend between modern day and what this has represented as a country style life. As a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, I've been a temple attending member for many, many years. I've been a member of this church for almost 50 years. And I think that we've been good neighbors to those that we know and know us. I know Mayor Culbertson from the past when this meeting house was constructed on Stacy Road. We had meetings much like this, and we had similar kinds of objections, the traffic jams and this and that and the other. But we came to a meeting of the minds. We came to a point in a place in time where there was an understanding between our desires, what we wanted, and what we thought we could bring to this community, and what was ultimately achieved. And while there are differences that are present here, I think that those differences can be
Height difference between the stake center and the temple.
In a place where each of us, and I'm not speaking as some church authority on this matter, I'm simply speaking as a member of this church.
This is one of the things they told them to say, not that they're not speaking on behalf
Do
of.
not, yes, do not say anything. You're
Resolution.
just a person with an opinion.
Meeting of the minds, compromise, has all been part of the history of people who I know in this church and of this church as a whole. So I believe that we can come to a point where differences can be mended, where there can be a common viewpoint and a common understanding, where we can be as one family here in this Fairview community. That's my hope, that's my aspiration, and that's what I believe is possible. Thank you.
Yeah, that's great.
Dr. James?
Just build it the way the town needs it to be built, cut it probably about in half, and everyone will be happy. That's
The
exactly
town
right.
has said we've come to common ground. That's
They said this is it.
Ben
So
Brown,
do
that's
what
our
your town
zoning
is
law.
asking you to do. Exactly.
the common ground.
But you,
Build to
very good
that and
point.
no
They
problem.
were coached in that meeting that we received the recording of. Never say you represent the church. Make sure you say it's your own opinion. Talk about the blessing. Talk about consensus and working with others.
applauding me coming up. Oh, yeah, they're applauding Ben coming up. Okay.
And Landon made the point. I don't know if you want to pause for a second.
You have a
We've
handout
heard
too?
over and over from people when questions get hard, that's above my pay grade. I think I was looking for sound bites the other day. I think I have 4 or 5. Now, how insulting is it to not send anyone whose pay grade it is? No decision maker has been sent to deal with the town council or the planning board in Fairview. How insulting is that? They sent people that say, I can't make those decisions. I can't speak to that. They send the lawyers, they send the PR, they have the local leaders. And it's funny because residents have said to me, well, who could we talk to? Who can make a decision? Who could we get through to that would make a difference? And I said, nobody. There's no one at all.
Yeah, it's a waste of everybody's time if you're going to have a meeting in which the other side can't make a decision.
Right.
They've got the mayor, they've got the town council. Yep. This was the scheduled meeting for you to have your decision makers there to have the discussion. I know they asked for a waiver, but come on, they were there. Their lawyers were all there. Yep. Where are the decision makers? Have some respect. Yep. Bring someone who can make a decision to the meeting. That is what you have the meetings for.
Yeah, and that is disrespectful. And I would say, I think the decision maker probably is the top leadership, because we've been told over and over in these processes, the prophet himself, the upper leadership decided on this temple, decided on the height, decided on the size, decided on the location. They are the decision makers because God told them. And that's one of the arguments why it can't be changed. They decided. However, in this case, we know that this temple was originally going to be built and was announced to the LDS membership at General Conference as the Prosper Temple. It was then suddenly, and for really no reason we can yet discover, moved to Fairview. And the people in Prosper, the LDS members, were so upset that there were letters that went out from the state president saying, it's okay, calm down. There's going to be a temple. It's going to be fine. So there is some strange something going on with that. But again, no decision makers to tell us or to explain. Everyone is left in the dark. How ironic, given the lit temple.
Yeah, with the light regulation.
Yeah.
All right, here we go. Still got a bit to go.
We do. I hope you're finding this fascinating. I mean, seriously, city government is interesting. And this is just a window into everything that's going on in every city. This repeats over and over.
To hear that the LDS community is willing to make some concessions. Mm-hmm. They need to. I wouldn't be standing here tonight talking about the operation of the lighting system if they had made those concessions so that they could operate. I've lived here since 2006. Thank you, Ben. One of the things they told us in their application is they want to operate the lighting system in compliance. Yet the last sentence of that paragraph totally contradicts that particular sentence. They say that they will extend the lighting from until 11 p.m. and up to 5 a.m. I've illustrated that in what I've handed out, an illustration showing that the lights will be in an undimmed mode from sunset to 11 p.m. and an undimmed mode until from 5 a.m. to sunrise.
Yep, blackout curtains.
Both of those periods of time, you can infer that they will be out of compliance with the standards. Otherwise, why would they have to dim the lights till 11 o'clock at night? As it currently stands, the application does not meet the lighting standards of the community. I'm hoping that at the next iteration, if there is one, that the LDS folks will hear what they need to do to be in compliance. If they need me to read them the rules and regulations, I'll be glad to do that. They're pretty straightforward. But right now, as the application exists, the town has one option, and that's to deny the cup. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben.
I love this because he says the regulations are straightforward. You just got to read them. And that's how it is. Yeah. I work in the construction industry. You look at the codes and you build to the codes. But here the specs are written by the church. They don't look at the town's requirements.
Exactly. And they keep saying, we have made concessions. We can't, like we said on John DeLeon, will you come into our town? And you... Wait, let me ask you this, Landon. Are you a decision maker in the construction industry?
It depends on what level it's at, but if it's one that needs a decision higher than me, I call the boss and I say,
exactly,
I need you at this meeting. They need somebody who can answer this. And at times I get called to meetings because I'm the guy who can make the decision.
Exactly.
So.
And when you understand the codes that someone is asking you for, then you do everything you can to meet them because you know it's not going to work if you don't.
Oh, you know you're not going to get away with breaking it with not applying to the code. You know, you don't come in and tell the fire marshal, hey, look, we met most of your codes,
Right.
you know, so, you know, we've made some concessions. Why don't you make some concessions? You don't do that. That's not how the construction industry works.
Exactly. And what if you were to say, it's part of my religious worship not to have sprinkler systems in my building because we believe in fire at the end. I mean, that's a ridiculous
We want everyone
example.
to burn when Jesus comes.
Exactly. But again, we're talking about building. It can't just be my faith tells me I need this. That I mean, maybe it can be part of it, but it can't be that completely.
The codes are there because someone has tried to do something in the past that caused all kinds of problems, just like this. And so that's why you put the codes, to protect everybody so that one group can't take advantage of another group. And that's why they're there. But the LDS, through their senators, got a law passed in which they tried to do an end run around all local codes and say, look, the national law says we can build whatever we want, which it doesn't. It says, it specifically says in it, they must adhere to the codes. But they have to show that it requires a significant burden on the church that they can't practice their religion by being denied that. And this is clearly not the case with the LDS. You can build a temple that's within code that you can still worship in, and it wouldn't be a significant burden. It's only a significant burden because you didn't design it to the codes in the first place.
That's right. And as we found those two quotes that Nemo used from Elder Bednar, and I don't think he used the one from President Nelson, but we found those. It was incredible. They were somebody in one of the comments on one of our temple videos said, hey, this reminds me of No Small Temples by Elder Bednar. And right away we're like, what? And we went and found that. And we have that posted on Mormonish. And he clearly says there's no such thing as a small temple. It's not about the size. Why does it matter? He says it right there. That was just last year. And then we also found another one from President Nelson a year and a half ago that said the same thing. It's not about the building. It's not about the architecture. And their point is, it's about what happens inside. Those things, those ordinances can happen inside the 11 temples that don't have the massive height, massive walls, the massive lighting. It's an argument that isn't going to work, but the RLUIPA law, the Religious Land Use and Incarcerated Persons Act, which was introduced at the same time as the Boston Temple, because there was a problem there. The residents were fighting the height of the steeple. This has been going on for decades. LDS Senators Bennett, Hatch, and Smith introduced this bill. It seems like a good idea. You can't discriminate against somebody that wants to build a mosque, or something, but you can't have it as a shield and then turn around and use it and wield it as a sword, which is what the church is doing. And I will say that towns are waking up. In Cody, Wyoming, where, all these workarounds with their city regulations and things, and we're waiting on that final ruling in Cody, whether the church will be allowed to build or go back to the drawing board. But Cody itself has now introduced new legislation into their city councils to protect themselves. You have to have a vast majority to vote for something that's this extreme. You have to notify people in a certain zone around the area where it's going to be built well in advance. Things that the church doesn't do to have it happen really quickly so that nobody can mobilize. So towns are waking up and protecting themselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
Council, thank you for the time tonight. I am a local ecclesiastical leader for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Bishop, Stake President.
Representing the congregations that meet at 651 East Stacy Road.
Stake President.
In Fairview. There are two items that I would like to address tonight. First is the safety of our children and our youth. The youth of our church enjoy worshiping at our temple by performing sacred ordinances for their ancestors. Some of our older youth will brave the traffic on Highway 75 and 635 and make the trek down to Dallas in order to worship. This is if they're able to schedule time, as that baptistry at that temple is often overbooked.
Other youth struggle in their ability to drive on these
done
major
some
highways.
research on that, not what we've heard.
I would prefer that they're not on these highways, especially during peak traffic hours. But I also want them to be able to worship in our temple. And having one here in Fairview will allow more of our youth that opportunity.
And a smaller temple would
Second
allow
item
you
I'd like to address is that of precedence.
As well.
In the planning and zoning meeting last month, the Planning Commission seemed concerned about setting precedents. I'd like to read a few excerpts from the Town Council minutes from September 5th, 2006 regarding a conditional use permit for Creekwood United Methodist Church.
No.
Permit had been before planning and zoning and, quote, comes to the council with a recommendation to approve with a few conditions. One of the main concerns was the bell tower and the noise from the bells.
Put your slide back up.
There were several representatives from the church who spoke in the presentation of the entire campus at build-out. This is only for phase one of the project. Steve Howard wanted to point out in a later phase, the height of the main building will be approximately 79 feet.
Yep.
Chief Price said that they had worked on this and it would not be a problem. Mayor Israeloff opened the public hearing and requested anyone wishing to speak state their name and address for the record. Mike Hughes from Lucas, Pete Harris, Mike Vince,
18 years ago.
and Mike Beauchamp, all of Fairview, all spoke in favor of the project. There being no other comments or questions, Mayor Israeloff closed the public hearing. A motion was made by Councilwoman Summers to approve the conditional use permit for Creekwood United Methodist Church as submitted, including the 150-foot height for the bell tower, and goes back to planning and zoning for the bells, but with note that council has no problems with the tower. Second by Mayor Pro Tem Fraser, with all in favor. Every church in Fairview has likely gone through the process for a conditional use permit. It's the same legal process we're following tonight. My only question is if there were, quote, no problems with the tower, and if it, quote, would not be a problem for a main building height of 79 feet.
Dan, go ahead and finish up.
Why does our council have an issue with this building?
No, it was never built. That's the wiggle room in the notes that was confusing to everybody, but that is not what happened. And I believe the next gentleman or woman addresses that.
Yeah, it's clear. It was not, it was rejected.
Yeah, it was rejected.
To claim something that wasn't approved as being approved, this is omission, sin of omission, as we hear.
And he did not get the memo because the church was using this in the beginning till some of the residents pointed out that was never built. So this gentleman did not get the memo that this is not a good example.
Texas Department of Transportation has standards for distance between driveways on state managed
These guys
streets.
know their stuff.
They know their stuff. Are you kidding?
For 50-mile-an-hour roads like Stacy Road, driveways must have a minimum of 425 feet apart. This allows a car to safely make the turn from a driveway and go from 0 to 50 miles an hour without causing an accident. The LDS Church is asking for a variance that was not mentioned in previous application memos, allowing a new drive to be built on the eastern edge of the temple property that's only 135 feet from the current driveway between their meeting house and the temple. That's less than a third of the normal distance required by TxDOT for a 15-mile-an-hour speed. But it gets worse. The new LDS driveway is proposed to be only 487 feet west of Meandering Way. Where's Twin Creeks Church going to put their driveway if they want to meet the TxDOT standards? The Kimley Horn traffic report indicated it would only be 227 feet east of the new LDS drive, which means the Twin Creeks Drive would be only 240 feet from Meandering Way. So here's the lineup. Meandering Way, 240 feet to the Twin Creeks Drive, 327 to the proposed Temple Drive, 135 to the shared LDS Drive, and then 200-ish to the West Meeting House Drive. Do you think that, or that's 4 drives in a row, and none of them meet the 425 foot distance? Do you really
They're
think
so close? They make traffic dangerous when you try to turn out of the driveways.
Especially with all the accidents that happen at that intersection. There was another major one just 9 days ago. In addition, the current LDS temple plan does not allow for cross-property access to the Twin Creeks Church. That means Twin Creeks members coming from the west on Stacy cannot use the existing left turn lane at River Oaks to go to their church. They would either have to do a U-turn at Meandering Way or turn left and use a new drive on Meandering Way that we really don't want. If the new drive for the LDS temple is not allowed, Twin Creeks Church of Christ can meet the TxDOT requirements by locating their drive at the western edge of their property. And if the LDS temple is neighborly and allows cross-property access, Twin Creeks members will not be forced to U-turn at Meandering Way. Fairview has never allowed these properties to access Meandering Way. In fact, Mayor Lessner has many times stated that he would never allow it to happen. But if this CUP application is approved as is, there may be no other choice for Twin Creeks. Please don't let this happen. Deny the second drive and force them to make a cross access to Twin Creeks.
Thank you, Margie.
Yeah. I mean, I'd never heard that brought up, and it's a very valid point. Lots of cars in and out, driving in, out.
And I want to go back to the stake president's comments, because not only did he talk about the church, but he also talked about the safety of the children having to drive to the Dallas.
Yes.
Okay, again, that seems like a bit of a stretch. I don't know many youth that drive to the temple by themselves.
It's usually a group, a youth group that's taken there by leaders, or sometimes they even get transportation. Yes.
So yeah, there might be one or two that go here and there, but that is he's making that the entire argument for building this temple, is that a couple kids have to drive 30 minutes. Now, I grew up in Davis County, Utah, and we had to go to Ogden to go to the temple, 30 minutes away. And we were told what a blessing it was to have a temple so close, and that we didn't have to sacrifice to go to the temple. So having a temple 30 minutes away in Dallas, that they should be glad that they don't have to make a sacrifice. And if you're saying that not having a temple immediately in your neighborhood is a safety concern for your children, then why is any LDS people anywhere more than 30 minutes away from a temple sending their kids to a temple to attend? Because they should be concerned for their safety. That seems to be a safety issue.
Well, I have an observation. If this person is a stake president, he said he oversaw the congregations. That means that he was at the meeting, that we were able to hear what had happened there. And they definitely instructed them, find a reason, not a feeling, but find a reason that you can talk about why the temple is important. So I'm thinking this gentleman thought, and it's a valid concern. All of us are nervous when our kids drive. But again, a temple that meets the codes of the town, they can do those ordinances there. There are 11 temples that do not have spires, that only have domes, that are smaller. They have baptistries. They have youth groups that go there and do baptisms for the dead, is what we're talking about. So the argument that it must be that big in order for that to happen is not true at all. And so I would think this gentleman would really want a temple that's immediately going to be passed and start construction so the children can be safe sooner.
And why isn't he going back to the church officials saying, our children need this temple to be smaller so it gets built, so they don't have to travel so far, so they're safe? Instead, he's going and making it the mayor's problem that the church is building a temple that's too big, when he should be going to the church leaders saying, why don't you make it the size so that our kids can go safely to the temple?
And interesting, I think I'll say this here, at that meeting of leadership, somebody did say, look, my neighbors are asking me, why does it have to be that tall? We'll totally pass it today. You can start building it tomorrow. And he's like, a lot of us don't know exactly what to say. So again, it's the institutional church putting these wonderful members, especially those in leadership, in this position to have to defend this, to have to come up with, it's kids driving. It's an untenable position. I feel like that, and there are some people that are active LDS that are pushing back, maybe are giving information to people, hoping to make a difference, that kind of thing. But again, exactly, why don't you LDS members go to your leadership and say, let's just put a temple the size they want. It's a win-win. We can do the ordinances. Our kids can participate. There's good neighbor feelings everywhere. We are a good neighbor. We are respectful. Why? And all they've been told is you've got to push that height, mass of the walls, and light. They don't even know why. No one really knows why, except for we know why, don't we, Landon?
It would seem having access to the covenants would be more important to your religion than having a big building. And
right.
That's what they're not willing to do.
That's what they're not saying. And what we know, having heard this from this meeting, is that, it was decided this temple would be this size with this steeple. I feel it has to do with the personality of the prophet, wanting things to be very grandiose, very large, making a huge statement. Now that they've done that and put that in play in all of these towns, they can't back down. And this is what the Curtin McConkie lawyer said. If they back down in even one place, this is what they alluded to. If they back down in even one place, it opens the door so that every place can stop a temple of any size from being built. And he said something like, do you remember, Landon? We'll just have a bunch of 35-foot. Is that
it'll be
something
a race
like
to
that?
The bottom? Yeah. Everyone will be building, which is what you're supposed to be building in residential. Which is what you're supposed to do anyway.
Yes. So because it was decided at the upper levels, and the temples are getting bigger and bigger and taller, because I will go on record saying I believe it is the personality of the current leadership. We didn't see this with a Hinckley. We saw working with neighborhoods. We saw putting temples in that seemed to fit, and they seem proud of that. They have to double down. Because of RLUIPA, if they were to make one concession, every town will use that as a precedent, and soon all the temples will shrink down to be where they're supposed to be. So they can't back down. They won't back down. And in this case, they will not return with any kind of plan that fits.
I think they're putting that in the new hymn book, aren't they? Won't back down.
Won't back down.
And I'll stand my ground.
That's right. Stand my ground.
Oh, what's
Gotta
the rest
be taller, higher, brighter. Yep. I love it. Let's just, this is already like a 5-hour episode. Let's just sing a little bit. I think we have low blood sugar. If anybody could DoorDash us something to eat right now, this would be amazing.
Yeah, we're only about halfway through, but at the end
so
there's some really important. Good and really strong things, and that's why we wanted to bring the whole thing. So
you guys take a break, go out to eat, and come back. We'll still be here
multiple times, but it's worth listening to because there's some really good comments.
Yep, exactly. And literally these things could be said in every town that we follow. This is textbook word for word.
And I've been a resident for over probably 35, 40 years. One time I brought up about an area that could have been used as a park or some kind of a recreational area. And it ended up being townhouses and apartments. And it's on also a historical site area with an old dam and a bunch of bridges for the railroad. The reason I'm bringing this up is, first of all, the tower up there that you're talking about, allowing them to put up on this building. There's jets that fly real low around here. If you had noticed, there are Learjets that land at an airport not too far. I've seen them cross this area many, many times. Are they going to put a beacon on top of that? Are they going to be able to tell if a plane flies over? Are they going to be able to miss that plane? Is that plane going to miss them?
This is happening in Heber right now, right in a flight path.
The tower is definitely the whole factor of this thing. And also traffic was brought up. And one guy, he said, think of the traffic flowing that's now almost landlocked. And it's just not able to flow with the lanes that we've existing at this present time, going to the different locations of Fairview. Intersection up on Highway 5, which is now fixing to be pretty soon, as you know, brought all the way around on Fairview Parkway off of that. But the congestion is something also to consider, because who knows how many cars, how many other areas, like she mentioned that driveway issue. I didn't know about that. I didn't understand that really, but that another church is apparently being built, and now they're having to try to figure out an easement for that driveway access to the road. So these are just all things to consider. And, in the beginning, that many years ago, as that train smoked down on tracks, went across those trestles that we took out because 18-wheelers kept busting up. It's just something to think about. We used to say, keep it country. We used to have a sign posted, keep it country. Now it's the city of Fairview.
Thank you.
Yep, no, he's not wrong. In Heber, it's right in the middle of the flight path, and they are talking about. I picture Moroni with, landing lights, or maybe the end of the trumpet. Yeah, but it's a concern.
And that's a little bit upsetting to them because they are in a fight with McKinney because they put the flight path right over their country town.
My family's been in Collin County. We've lived in McKinney and Lovejoy.
There are some interesting feelings between McKinney and Fairview because of the airport.
All of our neighbors. So I appreciate your time and consideration for all of the concerns of the community members here this evening. I'm here to talk to you about traffic. So there was a Fair and Piers report dated in December of 2022, calculated the trip generation for the proposed LDS temple, assuming that no new driveway access would be introduced for the proposed building. For this analysis, all new traffic volume would use the existing access point at Stacy Road and River Oaks Drive in Allen. Trip generation is based on the number of ordinance rooms of each type and the number of seats in each room. Ordinance room types include baptistry, ceiling rooms, and instruction rooms. Ceiling rooms typically hold 50 seats, and instruction rooms hold anywhere from 40 to over 100, depending on the size of the temple. The Fair and Piers report states, quote, the proposed Fairview temple will have 2 rooms with 40 seats each. If that is true, the temple would only require 27 parking spots. In the revised site plan introduced at the LDS open house, it was stated that 94 parking spaces were required. The new site plan still contains 102 spaces after removing the outer row of parking. Even the CUP application revised on April 11th appears to show a lot more than 80 seats in the temple, listing seats for 160 patrons, 120 workers for a total of 280 seats, requiring the 94 parking spots. Based on shift descriptions in the CUP application, the peak trips generated for the temple will be at 10 a.m., 2 p.m., and 6 p.m., when 60 workers will be changing shifts with 60 other workers, and 40 patrons are arriving for a 2-hour session as another 40 patrons are leaving at the end of their session.
Yep, she's done her homework.
In conflict with the Fair and Piers report that states, quote, it is expected to generate 64 trips and 74 trips in the AM and PM peak hours, respectively, the CUP application data points to 200 trips generated in and out of the temple grounds from Stacy Road, and that doesn't account for trips and traffic for the other ordinance rooms. As a traffic impact study is required when 100 new trips are generated, the CUP application number points to the necessity of a traffic impact study by TxDOT in the town of Fairview. I respectfully ask for an unbiased and current traffic impact study to be conducted, and that you require a detailed floor plan with the list of ordinance rooms and seats contained in each room before approving the CUP. Thank you so much.
Yep. In Heber, the church did the study. Isn't that right, Landon? Yeah. And all the traffic studies are never representational of what's going to happen. Oh my gosh. In Cody, we were there. Tiny little road, little rural, teeny tiny. We counted maybe like 2 cars the whole time we were standing there. Traffic is a huge issue.
Yeah.
Kinley and Horn released a traffic engineering study dated March 2024 based on volume data collected on Wednesday, October 12, 2022, and reported in a Fair and Piers due diligence traffic study dated December 2022. Neither of these is a traffic impact study or TIS. It states in the first paragraph, Fair and Piers recommends working with the city and state to produce a TIS that meets city and state requirements. So even 2 years ago, the engineering firm released that this due diligence study probably wasn't good enough to be making major decisions about Stacy Road. And 2 years ago, most people were still working from home due to the COVID pandemic. All traffic data will be skewed from March 2020 through the end of probably 2022, maybe even longer. A recent and unbiased traffic
impact study has to be ordered to address the needs of both Fairview and Allen residents who live and drive along Stacy Road. Everyone who lives around here knows that the traffic has increased even more since COVID. I'm sure you all know that. The 2022 collected data includes traffic counts, directions, and delay times for 6 intersections. The stoplights along Stacy Road at Greenville Highway 5 and Meandering Way, plus 3 stop sign controlled intersections at River Oaks Drive, Lost Creek Drive, and Allen Heights Drive. It also collected data for Meandering Way at Horseshoe Bend, the entrance of Bridal Gate neighborhood, that probably should not even be included. Regarding what data and analysis was provided, it showed that all of the stop sign controlled intersections were failing with an F grade in 2022 during peak conditions, before even taking this project into an account. The Meandering Way and Highway 5 intersections were nearing failing, getting a C and D grades under the same conditions. But we shouldn't eliminate intersections that really do matter to Fairview and Allen. All intersections from west of Stacy and 75 Central Expressway and to the east of Old Stacy Road, Stacy and Country Club needs to be included in the traffic study. Also, the trip distribution assignments or percentage of vehicles coming from each direction are flawed. Fair and Piers only assign 35% of generated trips coming from the west along Stacy Road, based where the LDS meetings houses were located. Since the temple is planned to be a regional center with...
Yep.
It's amazing. They're coming with facts and facts.
Yeah.
This is what you're supposed to address the council, and we just see testimonies being given because the church members have no idea why theirs is being rejected. They think it's because of their faith, so they go tell testimony.
Yes.
And everyone's pointing out the reasons that it's being rejected, but the church doesn't want them to hear that. This meeting is open to the church members to come and speak to, but they backed out when they heard they got a continuance because they want to go as a big, massive group and just show, oh, we're all here, even though none of them know the information or the...
Exactly. And pause it for 1 second. I have a point on that. They actually are not encouraged to know the issues or the information. Those that do, you hear them sometimes saying, yeah, why? My neighbors have a good point. What they're told via letters and social media posts and emails, they're told they're being persecuted. They're told it's because of their faith. They're told that Fairview doesn't want the Mormons there. And that's not true at all, nor is it true in Cody, nor is it true in Heber, nor is it true in Lone Mountain. Not at all. But this, unfortunately, is what I believe a lot of the LDS actually think. And then, of course, they think back to the persecution in the past. But if we pointed out a lot of the persecution in the past is because of a similar dynamic like this, where a lot of people come into town, try to change things, have different moral codes, polygamy, different financial things going on, starting banks, and residents in towns are like, I don't want anybody, regardless of what religion they are, doing this in my town.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And they even go one step worse, saying that it's Satan that is causing these people to oppose them. Yeah, which basically means everyone in Fairview is being influenced by Satan to fight against the church.
Yeah, and our residents pick up on that. They say to us, and when I say our residents, I mean people that we're in contact with. They say, we saw this email. It says we're the adversary. What's that? We're the opposition. We need to have our hearts softened. They don't understand. How are they the bad guy? They're just regular people living their lives, following the laws of the land. Why suddenly are they minions of Satan? Because they're saying, follow our town laws. We all voted on them, and we voted the people in who decided on them. Please play fair. Be neighborly. Be respectful. We're not minions of Satan.
When you ask for a Walmart not to be built, you're just a citizen. When you say the church is too big, you're Satan's spawn. So
it's very difficult when dealing with religion. It's frightening, actually, the power that religions have.
Well, I recognize that I'm not a Fairview resident. I lead the children's ministry of 500 children ages 2 to 11 for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in Prosper.
She's a children's ministry.
She's a state primary president.
State primary president, yeah.
In this temple. This past Sunday at our meetings, the children wrote letters to you to show their support for the temple. I'd like to present these to you and ask that they be included for the record.
They let them use second hour to write these letters.
Children drew pictures of temples. I couldn't help but notice that they all
wonder
have
if the children had any option as to what they drew.
Temple is a religious symbol, not just for our temples, but for many other religious buildings of all denominations.
Of course.
It points us toward God in heaven and invites us to aspire to be kinder and more Christ-like and to feel the peace of knowing our lives have a purpose.
The rhetoric of the
we have a heavenly Father who loves each one of his children. As a mother and a leader in our children's organization, I often think of a verse in the Old Testament, Isaiah 54:13. And all thy children shall be taught of the Lord, and great shall be the peace of thy children. The steeple pointing to heaven will provide everyone who sees it the opportunity to feel the peace of looking heavenward. As you can see from these pictures, and I can show a few, these children recognize the importance of these architectural elements and what they represent in buildings of worship.
I'm sorry.
That you do the same. Thank you for your time.
I'm sorry. Pause it. I'm sorry. That was really rude. And I apologize to that primary president. I did not mean to do that. I'm really sorry. But again, we've just been told so many times about the architectural elements being essential for the worship in the temple. And the idea that they are now having these children draw pictures that represent that. Now, we did learn that wards were encouraged to use second hour. That means, you know, the meetings and classes, like these children meetings, to write letters and to contact people on social media in defense of the temple. So this is exactly what they're describing here. Primaries had children draw pictures.
Yeah, which is just mind baffling that, you know, you bring children. It's not a children's issue. The children, these children aren't even allowed in the temple, except for once if they're going to be sealed to their family and they weren't born into it. So very few children under the age of 11 are allowed in the temple at all. So again, these are people who aren't allowed in the temple telling you how important the temple is to them. I'll also point out she quoted Isaiah.
Right.
Isaiah did not have a temple that was 173 feet tall.
He did not.
They had the temple in Jerusalem that was destroyed supposedly when Lehi left Jerusalem, and it did not have a steeple and was not anywhere close to this height.
No, it wasn't. And it reminded me of a scripture that one of our Cody residents gave to us, which I thought was great. Let me see if I can read it here. Basically, the concept is God does not dwell in the temple. It says, hold on just a second. I have to take a picture of it and blow it up because I made a meme and I put it in yellow, which doesn't really translate when you're trying to read something very well. But it says, God that made the world and all things therein, seeing that he is Lord of the heaven and earth, dwelleth not in temples made with hands, neither is worshipped with men's hands as though he needed anything, seeing he giveth all life and breath and all things. This is all in Acts 17:24 through 25. So it clearly says God does not dwell in the temple because, you know, he's in all of us. He's everywhere. He doesn't need a stone building with massive walls, a high spire, lit up to the hilt. Not at all. He does not dwell there. And it's interesting that the LDS church, you know, when we were growing up, they were temples. It was a temple. Then they started to introduce the word house of the Lord. The acronym, I guess, is HOL. I'm not sure if they thought that through. But yeah, house of the Lord. You hear that all the time. House of the Lord, house of the Lord. And they do believe that this is the house of the Lord. Now, I don't know if the Lord is Jesus or the Lord is God. We kind of use that word interchangeably in Mormonism. So either one, but I know there was somebody that spoke at the P&Z, or was it in Lone Mountain, who said the second floor of the temple is where God dwells, right? There's just all these ideas that it's not a metaphor. They really believe, I think, that God is in these houses of worship, and it's not, I don't know. I don't think it's accurate.
All right, we'll keep moving. You got to find the next person.
I know there's so many, but again, I'm sorry I laughed, Miss Primary President. I didn't mean to. Just the idea of kids saying the architecture is an essential element of our worship in the temple. No.
And tonight I'm going to talk about birds.
Oh, I love this
environmental impacts that the proposed temple, specifically the size and the illuminated steeple, will negatively impact migratory birds and birds of prey. The land we're currently in is the Blackland Prairie. It's a diverse ecosystem that once comprised of 23,500 square miles of Texas, and it's the most endangered ecosystem in the United States. Less than 1% of the original prairie still exists, lost forever to agriculture, overgrazing, and development. North Texas is the third largest migratory bird pathway in the United States, with millions of birds passing through Fairview every year. These birds fly mostly at night, and they use the stars to navigate. The large buildings with official lights disorient birds, disrupting their natural navigation system. So what happens? They get lost, they get disoriented, they collide with buildings, and they die. In fact, more than 600 million birds die each year from colliding into tall and/or lit structures. In fact, Dallas is known for being the third most deadly city for migratory birds. So in Dallas, people started collecting birds that had been slamming into buildings and showing them to people like yourselves to share that having bright, large buildings that are brightly lit is going to have an impact on these birds. So bottom line, this large building and steeple will be a magnet and a literal stop sign for migratory birds who have traveled hundreds of miles only to crash and likely die. Now let's talk about our native birds of prey. Texas is home to more raptors than any other states, and the Blackland Prairie is their primary habitat for 39 species of raptors, many of which are nocturnal hunters. Birds of prey are a key indicator of the health of an ecosystem because they keep small animal populations like rodents, reptiles, amphibians, small mammals, and insects in control. Light pollution and overdevelopment prevents owls from being able to see this prey. It removes the cover of darkness that they need to hunt. Commercial-sized buildings and bright light literally chase away raptors because they can't see their prey, and it results in what's called a trophic cascade. That means that the ecosystem dissolves into disaster, and here's why. Prey animal populations explode because nothing's eating them. These animals overeat the vegetation, which causes the plants to be unable to photosynthesize fast enough. The plants can't cope, so they die. It impacts the soil, and it impacts our water. So it's a big deal. Bottom line, when habitats are lost, the animals disappear with them. Tonight, I urge you to maintain our town's reasonable ordinances so that bright lights and a 16-story tall steeple in an RE1 zone space won't become a magnet, unnecessarily killing migratory birds and harming native species like our eastern screech owls and red-tailed hawks and American kestrels. Thank you.
Thank you. Hey, hang on. Lisa.
Yeah, I think this one's kind of interesting that God created all of this nature and then he destroys it for a big building.
Dark skies.
No, dark skies, but for the migratory birds. Didn't Laura Bush do that? No?
I don't know.
We talked about that this morning, about that being, okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it. All right. I see a name here I recognize, so I'm going to call him up because I want to say hi.
Obviously, this being Texas, the Bushes are a big political name down there.
My next door neighbor. That's why I was calling. Okay. All right. We're just hold Rick's for another one. Let's try. Here's another Alan.
I was out looking for birds. Sorry.
Frederickson.
Hello, Inga.
Hi. I'm right on Stacy Road, right down the street. I came here tonight to talk to you about the sewer, but I feel like I have to address something first that Dan, he omitted Schedule C out of the bell tower.
This is great. Yep. Back to the bell tower.
I was quoting, and I'm just going to read it to you. The following shall be condition of approval regarding the conditional use permit for the Creekwood United Methodist Church. The location and footprint of the bell tower is approved with the height, noise, and sound system of the bell tower to be addressed at a later time in the development process before the Planning and Zoning Commissions. Then, in that same document, it shows that September 5th of 2006, it was rejected. And then it shows in August 1st of 2017, it was approved at the adjusted height. So what I would like to ask council
Look how long that
is
took them to get approved.
why the town council is allowing an applicant to knowingly or inadvertently reference a false information in their signed application. This is a potential violation of state law.
Yeah.
And then
So
what
saying
I'd like
that guy
to talk
didn't get the
about
memo.
tonight as an Allen resident, recently, I spoke to the Assistant Director of Engineering Development for the City of Allen. He stated that LDS has had informal preliminary meetings with the City of Allen about sewer hookup. These conversations are based on an occupancy similar to the meeting house next door to the temple property, which is a local stake. The temple, of course, is regional in nature per John Cannon's statement at the May 2nd LDS open house. They are hopeful for 80,000 visitors a month. It's possible that sewer might be denied by the City of Allen based on these numbers, at least until there's a modification to the interlocal agreement between Allen and Fairview, sewer improvement at the cost to LDS, and the temple's retail store and tax revenue considered by Allen City Council. It can also be denied by Allen Council for political reasons. If the City of Allen rejects the temple sewer, they will then be forced to put in an aerobic septic system designed by a licensed sanitarian and submitted to the town for review. The numbers, 80,000 people, 20 days a week, 16 hours a day, are equivalent to 250 people per hour. It would be a very robust system. At this point in time, we don't know if there's adequate room on the property for a septic this big, and this cannot be answered until the system is designed. This isn't just a Fairview problem. It's an Allen problem, and little to no public comment has been made from the LDS leadership on how they plan to resolve this issue. Please do not approve the CUP before these critical questions are resolved with Allen regarding the temple. Thank you.
Thank you.
Such a good point, right? Pause it for a second. Such a good point. The infrastructure of the sewer, right? Which goes to Allen, right? They would have to go before the Allen town council, right?
Yeah,
is that what she was saying?
That's where it would be tied in. The nearest sewer connection is actually the city of Allen. This kind of, I guess, runs along the border.
So I can see this already, right? They're having trouble. They're sending out emails. Protect our sewer. Brothers and sisters, we ask you to come to the council meeting and please tell them how important the sewer is to the, I mean, I can see it. Wear brown shirts. I can see it.
Brown shirts. I think this lady's going 80,000 people a month. That's a lot of shit to process.
Oh my goodness. Well, we all know it's not going to be 80,000, but it just speaks to the idea that is that even part of the plan? Do they even realize this is what has to happen? These are the details that the residents in the town are thinking of. I don't know if the church is thinking about this. It's so complex, a building of that size with that many people involved.
Yeah, there's a lot to these buildings, and church members should be asking themselves, is this the right building? Is this the right size for this community? And
do I want to clean those toilets?
Not, oh my gosh, President Nelson said we get one and we're going to do it no matter what. There's questions that need to be asked. That's what this process is all about.
That's right. And we all know the burden on a stake when they have to find everybody to staff the temple. I've seen meetings from or agendas for bishopric meetings in different places here in Utah where they say, we need 88 people to fill shifts at the temple, please. And when you build one temple in one area, like what you're experiencing here in your area, Landon, they move people from another temple to fill it. And then what happens to this temple? And I'm not talking about people attending it. I'm talking about people that volunteer their time to work in the temple, meaning facilitate, help, stand as a guide in the hall to show people where to go, that kind of thing. It takes a lot of people.
They also ask them to volunteer to clean it. So
in the middle
I don't
of the
think
night.
I'd want to be cleaning one that has a septic system that's backing up. But
oh no, in my ward, I got an email the other day because I'm still on the list, and it said that they needed 22 brethren to clean between like midnight and 4 a.m., something like that. Yeah. And it's all volunteer, completely volunteer. So yes, there's traffic. Yes, there are cars because people are assigned to work there, not necessarily attending as a patron, but assigned to work there for free. When we say work, we're talking about for free.
We should have said voluntold. You're called in and told,
oh, I
we
had
need
never
you to
heard that
volunteer
phrase.
for this. And if you
Voluntold.
don't accept, you won't be with your family forever.
No, I feel like stake precedents. Oh, there's a temple coming to our area. Because it's very difficult. It's very difficult to find that amount of people when the temples are so close together. I mean, we're talking about thousands of people needed, in an area where there are multiple temples.
And I can't imagine that this area of Texas has that many members on it.
Yeah, no, to staff that. It's going to be like a full-time job.
Thank you for your service to our town and for the opportunity to speak on behalf of Fairview residents and some of our LDS friends who are not really able to speak for themselves tonight. This experience has been disheartening, to say the least. Throughout the Fairview Comprehensive Plan, the area east of Highway 5 is zoned to value our keeping it country rural heritage. Many of the current 10,000 residents today moved here on that promise. An edifice of 65 feet with additional height feature 16 stories tall, brightly lit for extended hours, is inconsistent with the comprehensive plan. Residents of all religious backgrounds have peacefully coexisted for all these years. Stacy Road is a physical representation of religious freedom and the rural heritage of Fairview. We request that the CUP be treated equally to previous requests and not provided special treatment based upon bold statements or legal threats. The LDS organization has many reasonable available alternatives that demonstrate the ability to express their faith and to comply with Fairview zoning ordinance as seen with lighting in Heber Valley or height in multiple Arizona sites, Yorba Linda, and others that have been stated tonight. Please stand firm, requiring full disclosure and detailed documentation of compliance with the zoning. I implore the town to protect our rights also provided by national and state religious freedom acts that are being claimed for religious freedom, but they also protect our rights. A DOJ letter in March to state and local municipalities emphasizes that our LUPA does not provide a blanket exemption from local zoning and landmarking laws. It safeguards to prevent against discriminatory actions, which hopefully this is not one, because no one is saying we don't want you here. Contrary to threats made by legal counsel at the May 2nd meeting, the Texas Religious Freedom Restoration Act doesn't encumber the rights of any municipality from requiring religious institutions to comply with precedence-based zoning restrictions, providing that all religious institutions are treated consistently. Furthermore, there are multiple cases that show that in Circuit 10, for example, at the Federal Court of Appeals in Circuit 10, a church has no constitutional right to be free from reasonable zoning regulations. So we're not really saying to LDS or anyone, we don't want you here. We're just asking you as the town council to protect our rights as well that are offered in these laws, as well as the religious freedoms. And in conclusion, we request the town of Fairview to require the CUP to meet Fairview zoning ordinances and precedences. Thank you.
Thank you, Gretchen.
Yeah, that was excellent.
Yeah, very well put. And that's a good, our LUPA, someone mentioned that when we put it on, the text-to-speech calls it our loophole.
Our loophole, exactly. And in fact, the recording of the lawyers at the leadership meeting for the LDS leadership, he said, I deal with all kinds of buildings. I wish I had that loophole for my buildings that aren't religious.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
Like I said, wielded like a sword against communities, not a shield for a religion that needs it, a sword against towns.
Come on up. How are you?
Doesn't Fairview seem like a really friendly place? They just sound so friendly.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. I'm thinking of moving there.
I would like to. I know. I don't like what Word Radio said about them, where they made kind of a negative.
And I'm here to address concerns regarding drainage in connection with the proposed McKinney Temple to be built.
Sewer, traffic, drainage, height, lighting. The residents they've got it.
Chancellor, the town engineer, on some of the technical drainage concerns.
Environment, birds.
McKinney Temple. And I feel confident he knows what should be incorporated into a meaningful and effective plan, provided the LDS Church is held accountable to design, implement, and monitor according to the town ordinances. My main concern with drainage is to the north and east. The McKinney Temple will create excess runoff that will go to the adjacent lot and pass it on north directly to River Oaks 2 and east to the meandering way drainage that borders River Oaks 2. Recent rain has shown that River Oaks 2 and meandering way is already an issue. The new temple construction will increase that runoff and cause the current issue to get considerably worse. So far, the LDS Church hierarchy in Utah has decided that our planning and zoning code should not apply equally to them. And when asked to do the right thing in our town, they threaten with bullying and litigation as opposed to being benevolent and neighborly. I have concerns they will do the same thing with regards to proper drainage. Based on what we've experienced from them so far, they feel their desires and egos should allow them to ignore our existing ordinances. They have little or no regard for the framework of our town and its citizens, a pattern they have demonstrated repeatedly in other cities and towns across the country. Unless there are ramifications for non-compliance with the town ordinances, they have shown they do not consider them meaningful. For example, lighting on their existing structure. There are two different groups here tonight. One group, the vast majority of which lives outside the town of Fairview, only wants what they decide is best for the proposed McKinney Temple as directed by their hierarchy in Utah, regardless of how it affects our town and its citizens. If they are unable to intimidate our town, to violate or change existing ordinances, they threaten to litigate. The other group, who actually lives in Fairview, wants to maintain the atmosphere and community commensurate with a small town that was formulated and revered long before the LDS Church decided to build the McKinney Temple here. It is my hope that the City Council will treat us both fairly and equally as to making decisions that align with our town's history, character, purpose, ordinances, and our citizens' well-being. Thank you.
That's great. Well said.
It makes it sound like, that the prophet is sitting up there in Salt Lake, kind of like Old Testament times where God says, go wipe out the Fairviewites.
That's right. Go do it.
Lay waste. Make sure there's other destruction and nothing left, that you might build my house.
I know. Yeah, I don't know if they're aware in upper leadership what a turn this has all taken with so many towns at once and so many residents.
That's 20 years now. We chose Fairview as our forever home specifically because of the RE1 zoning codes. I really love this town. We expect that the town council to also deny with prejudice the CUP for the LDS temple structure in its current form because it's not architecturally harmonious and does not conform to ordinances and precedents discussed here tonight by the speakers, including steeple and building height, lighting to protect our dark skies, traffic issues, sewer and drainage concerns, and some incredible legal threats made against our town. And all of these, in my mind, add up to one thing: being a good neighbor. The LDS already has a worship center in our town, so no one can say, although some are trying, that they're not welcome. They're here, and we love that they're here. We want them to build their temple next to their worship center because it makes sense, but only if they follow the current zoning regulations and precedents, and not an inch more for the height and not a bulb brighter for the lighting, as well as being in compliance with the other areas of concern discussed. They have been good neighbors, and we don't want the bullying and legal threats against our town to change that. Is it being neighborly and transparent when the church sends out letters to their stakeholders asking for prayers and fasting to soften the hearts of the town residents to allow for a structure that is 5 times as tall as the current precedent? Although these letters fail to mention that fact, wouldn't neighborly be just building within the current precedents already here and not expecting to be treated better than others before you? They could easily get the approval of the structure if it was designed with the zoning codes and precedents. We will likely have speakers here tonight say that the 175-foot tall structure is necessary to practice their religion. But is that really true, or just what they were told to say to bring the town of Fairview blessings and joy and peace? We certainly are not feeling much joy and peace right now. Does being a good neighbor mean that you say it's 2 stories just like our homes with vaulted ceilings when the height is really equivalent to 6 stories? Does being a good neighbor include suing our town and bankrupting us into order for us to see the blessings? This is the modern day David versus Goliath, with Goliath being the billion-dollar corporation or church trying to bully our great town to put them above our community and citizens, and that is not neighborly. One added personal comment, which I also spoke about at the P&Z meeting, and this is to the LDS leaders. Please do not play the name game. Why is it that the LDS Church is so unimpressed by the Fairview name and community that they want to violate our zoning codes and precedents and then intentionally name it the McKinney Temple? And not just because it's near McKinney or McKinney ISD lots. That doesn't justify that. If the LDS Church wants to build their temple here in our great town, in my forever home, then please call it Fairview.
Thank you.
That was excellent. And that could have been said in any of the towns, Cody, Heber, Lone Mountain. It has been said. That was excellent.
It's like they don't even know what town they're putting it in.
There's several people here from McKinney tonight, so I haven't given anyone from McKinney a chance.
And again, we should explain McKinney is right next door to Fairview.
This is an excellent one. This is an active member. This is well worth listening to. So let's
I think we made it short.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the council, for hosting me tonight and permitting me to speak. I speak in opposition to the conditional use permit as proposed. I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, trying to live a life of integrity. I've worshiped in Latter-day Saint temples for over 15 years. I volunteered 2 of those years abroad in full-time proselyting missionary service. I hold a current temple recommend, which is a document that attests that the bearer meets the requirements and is considered worthy to enter the temple. It's presented and scanned in the lobby to gain admission to operational temples. My fellow members here are well-intended. You're good folks. Please give us grace. Thousands have emailed and hundreds attend today in response to misleading letters from our leaders that the, quote, growing opposition does not want us to have a temple. It's clear to all who have involved themselves that the people in government of Fairview have taken no such posture. The only thing left in the way of this temple is church leadership's insistence on details such as the height of the spire. There's no tenet of the faith, no principle, no doctrinal basis for the height of the temple spire. In the temple, Latter-day Saints make covenants and carry out ordinances of salvation such as baptisms for the dead, the initiatory, the endowment, sealing families, and all of these also on behalf of deceased ancestors. The steeple and spire are not related to the ordinances performed in the temple or their associated covenants. Church leadership uses the mites of the widows to hire lawyers and attorneys to do battle over lighting and architecture in cities across the country and the globe, sowing enmity between members of the church and their neighbors and calling it persecution. Now it's happening right here. This will continue until awareness spreads and the people dissent. You, Mayor, and the council are in a position to ease the strife brought to Fairview and neighboring areas. Those who commission these projects draw near me with their mouth and with their lips do honor me, but have removed their hearts far from me. They speak softly and carry a big stick. I've never known Americans, certainly not Texans, to lie down just because someone carries a big stick. As for myself, do I fear the consequences of speaking here today? Yes. But action in spite of courage, action in spite of fear is courage. Let's be courageous. Thank you.
Wow. And I believe he got a standing ovation. They're not letting you hear the clapping, but I believe that he got a standing ovation because I think you're seeing this now within the members. There are people that are saying, I have with good conscience, I can't continue with this narrative that the church is asking us to put out there.
I want to say this to the people of Fairview if they're listening. What this man just did is what I believed an LDS person should act like. Mm-hmm. And when I saw my leaders not acting like that and acting the way that they do in developing hedge funds and not telling the truth about their doctrine and their history and their buildings, that's when I left. But that is the courage that I expected from all the members of the church. And I'm so disappointed as we cover this everywhere to see how few have the courage to stand up and say, this is not right. We saw it in the leadership meeting. One of the people stood up and said, I don't see it. I don't understand the steeple being a requirement. That's never been important to me. Why am I telling people that? He asked it in the leadership meeting. Is he willing to stand up and say that in the meeting, town council meeting, and stand up for what he really believes? Or is he going to listen to what these people are telling him, these leaders are doing to try to get to promote their agenda? This man had the courage to do what was right. And that's the reason we're doing what we're doing now as podcasters, is we've seen this over and over and over, and we couldn't not say something and not point out that this is wrong. I applaud this man.
I do too.
So, all right.
All right, moving along. And again, I'll say that we normally would hear more faithful LDS, but they've been told to stand down and save it for August. So normally there'd be probably more than residents
tonight, and then we're going to see if the council's interested in continuing this. So just if you don't get your name called tonight,
I think there's just one or two left, maybe two or three, and then they go into the decision.
We end up doing, but so I'm going to do three more, and I have
three more.
And I can't even read the writing. I got to look.
My family and I are in a unique position along with two of our neighbors. We share a fence with the property in question today. I want to first thank you for your service. You have an incredibly tough decision to make tonight and moving forward. I want to emphasize that the temple is welcome here in the town of Fairview. All that we're requesting is they follow the established local ordinances of the town of Fairview and respect the character of the neighborhood. The issue means a great deal to me, not only as a resident, but also as an American. Over 20 years ago, shortly after 9/11, I was commissioned as an officer in the United States Army. In this capacity, I served honorably in combat role for 15 months in Iraq. It was my duty to defend the country, its citizens, and uphold the Constitution of the United States of America, its principles of government, which set the foundation for this historical document. The applicant has spoken at length about First Amendment rights and freedom of speech, assembly, petition, press, and the religion, duly noted. These liberties in the Constitution mean a great deal to me, not only because of my own personal benefit, but it provides protection for all citizens' beliefs, civil liberties, and inalienable rights, as long as they do not infringe upon others. As you know, we citizens are guaranteed equal protection under the law, regardless of any defined stature in society. These liberties and the RLUIPA formulation, whether federal or state, mocks the constitutional requirement of equality under law. Two neighbors, one religious, the other a family, who buys a plot of land on the same day in the same zone area are treated unequally under the law. The religious landowner gets first-class treatment, while the neighbor is a second-class citizen who must accommodate his property, his dream, even his family, to the religious landowner's desires. For example, as a landowner, I cannot put a modest addition to my modest home. Nevertheless, my next-door neighbor, a religious organization, is permitted to build a huge complex that dwarfs my home. As a result, my peace and quiet is permanently disrupted, yet I must abide by the same zoning laws whose purpose has been undermined. Regulation as to its size, building size, height, parking, traffic, you name the topic, is a religious group that uses the RLUIPA to try to override the category of zoning regulation to serve its own interests. As a result, private owners like myself who invested their life savings in family homes are being told that the federal law has ranked their dreams behind a religious group's mission. Please do not allow this to happen or allow the CPUP in its current state. Thank you very much.
That's a great point, isn't it? A homeowner and a religion buy a plot of land on the same day.
Well, that's what we keep saying. Just because somebody has a religious myth, which they believe, which is fine.
Yeah, that is fine.
Why, because you have a religious myth, are you allowed to do things that people who do not have that same myth are not allowed to do? It's just not right. And Joel, former Army officer, hoorah!
That's right. Like Landon.
Yep. So way to speak it, because that's exactly right. You do that service for everybody, not for one group or one religion. That everyone might be treated equal, and that's what he was saying. So what are we down to? One more or two more?
I think we have two more, and then they'll do a little
Thank
discussion.
you for your service. All right, I got two more here.
Me and my husband moved here in 2020 from Dallas area because we wanted some more space for our children. And to be honest, before we came to see the house that we currently live in, we didn't know that Fairview existed. But once we came, we fell in love with this little town, especially coming from Dallas. It's truly special. We wanted to create a forever home for our children because neither one of us had that growing up. I found out 2 days prior to the April 11th zoning meeting from another neighbor who found out through word of mouth about the proposed temple and its height. And I live on the street behind it. I guess I was not one of the lucky few that got a letter. So me and my friends started knocking on doors, and come to find out, almost every neighbor that I spoke to on our street had no idea that it was happening. I just want to make myself very, very clear. Me and all of the neighbors that I have talked to on my street in River Oaks, we have no problem with this temple being built on that plot of land. There are already 2 churches there, and they're great neighbors. We are simply asking for them to follow the current zoning laws here in Fairview regarding the height and the lighting. The city regulations that have been set forth to protect the taxpaying residents of Fairview. There's also something else that I would like to address about the idea that the temple will raise property values.
No.
So I'm a realtor here in the area, and I can promise you that if I had a client, let's say Joel, that just came up and spoke, whose backyard will be about 160 feet from the temple, or my friend Rose, whose home faces it and won't be able to see the sun after 4 p.m. if this temple is built at its current height. As a realtor, I can promise you that if a 16-story structure built on an RE1 zone plot of land, 160 feet from your backyard, back fence, will unfortunately not raise your property value. It will hurt it. We aren't just discussing the temple here. We are also discussing the future of our special little town forever. Because of this project, if this project gets approved in its current design, then it's going to change Fairview. So when making a decision, I would like our town council and our mayor to please deny the CUP without prejudice until it meets the design requirements and consider the future of this town, as this decision will affect Fairview forever. Thank you.
Yeah, that's great. And I read a post from a realtor talking about that no, property values perhaps in Utah because LDS want to live next to the temple, but overall no. And as we've talked about, property taxes go up, and some people are even edged out of being able to afford their own home if they had planned to stay there because the taxes may go up.
I've lived here for 25 years. First moved in, this was nothing but farmland that J.D. Goodman would drive his Cadillac through the pasture to get his horses out of my backyard. Things have changed, and I think it's been good. 2 churches that I have are my neighbors. Has been nice. It's been good. I remember having a conversation with at least one of the council members when the first church came in, and we thought what might be occurring on that plot would in fact be 4 churches. That seems to be where we are. We have no issue with 4 churches being on those lots. I have no issue or concern with the temple. However, with my house right behind it, something of that size, height, lighting, irrigation, which, by the way, just to let you know, the water that already flows from that property before it has 95 parking lots has mine, as well as Joel's property, pretty well flooded in the backyard. So please make sure they take care of some irrigation issues when all that concrete is indeed built.
That's a really good point. Of course. Diverting the water.
The emerging concern from tonight is that while it was good to hear that there's a dialogue going on today between the council, the mayor, and the church, this process has been going on for months.
We had a large crowd turn out at the first meeting in April for the P&Z. What did the church do? They asked for a deferral. They thought the large crowd of residents coming to oppose them might not turn out. They misgambled. They scheduled it a month later. We showed up again. They denied the request. Now you have an even larger crowd here before the council. Third month, third time, we haven't gone away. What did they try to do with their tricks again? They've asked for a delay. You've proffered that maybe what you might do is in fact support that delay and have this large crowd once again turn out. I hereby request that what you do, so that maybe they'll learn to negotiate in good faith, is to deny the request with prejudice. And maybe if they have a year, they may come back, compromise, and deal within the zoning requirements that we request. Thank you very much.
Yep. Different options on the table. And he certainly says, let's push it off a year.
Well, he's got a point. This has been going on for months. And the day of the meeting, they call them, they fly out their lawyers, again, no decision makers, and say, we want to have a talk.
So, and we know they've hired a real estate law firm now, so there's going to be more talking and probably some suing.
Most people from Fairview, but not all. I mean, there's still 40 or so people here left. We could stay in longer if everybody wants to do that, but I don't think that's the answer. So from the council's perspective, as I kind of outlined earlier, we have two choices that we can make tonight because there's only 5 of us here. There are 2 council people that had vacations overseas. They were scheduled a long time ago. Frankly, I'm leaving tomorrow for 2 weeks. So it's summer and this happens.
He probably needs a vacation.
So
after
we
this.
have, because P&Z rejected it, rejected the application.
Right. The Planning and Zoning Board said we do not recommend.
Super majority of the council, 6 people, to be able to vote to do anything, I guess, from a approval perspective. So even if we decided that we were going to approve a CUP with maximum height, maximum steeple height, impervious surface coverage, we cannot do that tonight legally. So we have 2 choices. One choice is that we deny it with or without prejudice, or we do what we talked about with these folks earlier today, based upon, and which is to grant and they have requested, just like the gentleman just said, a continuance of this public hearing. And we would do that in August. So what I'm hoping, if we choose to do that, I'm hoping we see some progress from our friends from Salt Lake City. I think they heard today that we are resolute in that things need to change, that they need to adhere to our zoning codes, and that we have a lot of residents that we are here today, and I appreciate everybody on both sides showing up, but that we need to see some progress. So I suspect what did not happen with P&Z. P&Z had no conversation with the LDS folks that I'm aware of, at least. We are in conversation with them. Again, we have told them that what is acceptable, 68 foot on the steeple. We said 42 feet. That's debatable on the height of the building. 42% impervious coverage, and the lighting. We have to find out what happens with that. That's still a big unknown question. So if we continue this tonight, my expectation is that we will have a series of conversations with the folks from Salt Lake City.
But not
they're going to
the
go back and
decision
try.
makers.
The folks that are here tonight are
Again.
not in a position to say, yes, I can do that. No, I can't do that. But they will, I'm hoping that we talked in good faith today, and they will go back and really try to make some changes to meet our requirements. So with that, I am going to move that we as a council I'm going to move that we continue this public hearing and do that until a date. I know that's not happy.
Yeah, there was some booing, I think, maybe, or exclamations. I don't know. I didn't.
Listen.
because they're very disappointed. And like the one woman said, you're going to drag it out another 2 months.
Please stop. We don't need that. That's almost childish. So please, on both sides, by the way, please.
Yeah, both
sides.
We
are trying to do what we think is best for the town. There are big time legal issues here, big time, that several people have referred to this. And based upon counsel we have had, and based upon my opinion, based on what I think, and I'm going to let the other council members, if they have a comment, to say something, but it is in our best interest to continue this for 2 months. And I know that's not popular. I know that's not what people want, but I think it's best for our town to do that. So I'm going to open it up. Do any of the other council members want to comment on it? Either agree with me or don't. That's okay.
Yeah, it's a rough decision.
Yeah, you need a second to do that. I did make a motion to continue this. The date certain would be the first Tuesday in August.
You're responsible for the fiscal well-being of the town, and you're being threatened, 1,100 residents or whatever Fairview is.
It's got like a $17 million budget. I think that's what I heard. So the idea is you let the church, you give them 2 months, they better come back with something. Then it kind of all hits the fan at the end. So, and I think they'll see they don't come back with anything.
So
they just hired a law firm, a real estate law firm.
Well, I need a second. If we don't have a second, then we go on to something else. But and we don't have a second. Nobody. Okay, we don't have a second. So I'm going to let the council say comments about things if they want to. And
and the letters I saw after this said the Lord's hand is in it. We won or something. A continuance is not winning. They're just giving everybody time. Unfortunately, that means community relations continue to break down.
Is yours working?
No. If the council would choose to deny without prejudice, what's the procedure that goes there with that as far as the timeline and what happens?
Well, a lot of that will be up to the applicant. If it's denied without prejudice, the applicant has the ability to refile a request, and it would go back through the normal zoning process from the beginning. So notice would go out, mail, newspaper, public hearing would be set before the P&Z, and the public hearing would be set before the council. Time period exactly would correspond with the city's planning, town's planning calendar. So I would defer to Israel on. But he would need to know when something gets refiled, if it does, if there's a new submittal.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other comments, questions, Council? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm not sure this mic is actually on. I haven't used it. Is it okay? Okay, good. First of all, thank you very much for coming tonight. Your input has been valuable to us to make this decision.
Is this art?
I've spoken to many of you personally about it. I think you know where I stand.
This is a church member, though.
Gotten
right?
good legal counsel at this point.
These are the city council members.
Oh, okay. I was thinking
discussed things and talked with the parties, so we have information you don't have. But I appreciate what you have provided.
Yeah, it's council member.
And what I hear you saying, and I want you to know that you elected me to this position, and I took the oath tonight.
Poor guy.
Oh my goodness, a new council member.
I want to represent the people of Fairview. That's what I want to do. So this is not an easy decision. And personally, I don't think that waiting a couple of months, well, the only thing that it will change is either the leadership of the LDS that's here that has an opportunity to change their presentation and come within our ordinances.
No, they don't.
That's the only thing that can happen. If it doesn't happen,
has to change at the top.
My guess is it'll be denied.
Yeah.
But they have asked for that. They've asked for a continuance. Most of you have said you don't oppose having the temple, but you want it to meet the ordinances. That's what we want. That's what I want. And I'm going to represent you that way. So what do we do? It's a sticky wicket, as they say, you know, but we're going to try to do the right thing. I want you to know that. Thank you very much.
Yeah. And he did say they do have other information, perhaps from talking to them, that everybody out there doesn't. But as we've seen in other towns, these 2 months could involve threats of personal suits against town council members and threats against suits of the town. Anything can happen in the next 2 months.
And I think it would be good for them to be included on this. On the other hand, and I think we're sure that you're going to go on and make some changes on that. If not, I'm like you, Greg, that I don't think we should go on and approve it. Now I'll tell a little story real quick. I'm really, really old. And
aren't we all?
From Detroit, and we moved out to a suburb called Oak Park, Michigan. And at that time, Oak Park, Michigan was primarily Jewish. And in fact, we were the only non-Jews on the block. And these Jews were Orthodox Jews that walked to the temple. Their Shabbat, I think that's what it was called, started at Friday night at sundown and lasted till Saturday night at sundown. And so when I got there, my chore was to cut the grass. And my dad, I still remember this. My dad said, "Son, you are not to cut the grass on Saturday." He says, "We may have the right to do it, but we want to be good neighbors." Now, I'm not saying that the LDS Church has the right to build a 173-foot spire, but I do think they want to be good neighbors. So I hope you want to be good neighbors, right? And so we didn't do that. So that's where I'm back and forth, you know, give them the opportunity to be a good neighbor or deny the request. That's where I am.
A great story.
Yeah, no. And he's just saying, look, we'll give you the chance. If you do want to be a good neighbor, like you say, then come back with a plan that works for everybody. We will give you this shot. Prove to us that you are going to do what you say and you mean what you say.
Thinking that it was just height that was the issue. I learned a lot from everybody speaking. Traffic is an issue. Lighting is an unknown issue. Sewer was a new one to me that could be rejected by Alan. So we have to get a lot of things sorted out. And I don't think we can do that between now and August. So I'm kind of on the fence too. The hard decision. And I'm not really sure either way is right. I'm worried that we don't have Ricardo and Larry here. They may vote differently, whatever we vote on. So it's very, very difficult for me. But we all take the seriousness of this. We understand it. We understand what the church wants to do. We want you here as good neighbors. We want the right thing done. But there's so many unanswered questions. So I'm just on the fence. I don't know what to say.
Yeah. Like an impossible situation, you know? They came in and they put this town in an impossible situation.
If my voice is shaky, it's not because I'm nervous, it's because I'm freezing to death.
I believe this is the church's.
Yeah.
The concerning thing to me is the presenting of the size and height and all the rooms and the tall walls and the
rooms,
spire
walls
as a major tenet somehow of the worship of the religion. And I found this.
This is a city councilman. I'm sorry, this isn't the church.
Made mention of it in passing, but he talks so fast and talks funny.
Oh, he's talking about Nemo. He wants
may
to
not have heard
restate
it.
some of the things that Nemo
Allow
said.
me.
The quotes. that we came across. Yeah.
This is a quote by Elder David Bednar, one of the quorum of the 12 apostles. And I think he speaks with some authority. This is a year ago.
He outranks everyone you're talking to, Fairview, everyone.
The date, I don't know the date, but it's on YouTube.
It was in 2023.
It's posted by Church News, which it says is an official publication of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, jointly published by Deseret News and the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Its content supports the doctrines, principles, and practices of the church. So I think they're legit. But to cut to the chase, Elder Bednar's talking for 2 or 3 or 4 minutes. And at one point, exactly 1 minute and 32 seconds into the video, he says, and I quote, "I hear people, oh, that's a small temple. There's no such thing as a small temple. They are just temples. There's no such thing as small covenants or small ordinances." That to me reflects this fixation on it's the building. Who cares what the size is if you have access to the same covenants and ordinances? If I were a member, I would have a hard time contradicting that elder.
I have heard members say who have seen our video with this quote, that's not what he meant.
I'm going to go back.
That's not what he meant. They're in an impossible situation. The church has said, you got to have a big one building.
Everybody here knows, but I think
the apostle has said it doesn't matter. What do you do?
The way it's set up today, they need to follow our ordinances. The CUPs that we've already passed is the maximum we can do. I am very concerned about where this goes if we deny them.
Here's where they're scared of a seat.
There are some significant federal laws that were put in place specifically for the LDS Church
by Utah senators and LDS senators
back in the day. We might be jeopardizing our position. I'm saying this out here for everybody to hear because they know this. If we deny it, if we don't show that we are willing to accept having a temple in town, assuming they meet our guidelines, and our LUPA protects that, I believe, it's important that we go that direction as opposed to just denying.
Yep.
I know that's not what anybody wants to do, or at least the folks here in the green shirts.
They have to buy some time. They have to show some good faith.
Opinion, I've lived here.
Allow them to make the adjustment.
Allow them to do it. Give them a chance. Then they're not the bad guy. And the church is the bad guy when they come back with lawsuits.
No, we have denied over time. Some of the council members that are sitting here in front of us, they have denied other uses for that facility or for that property because it didn't meet our RE1 zoning code. And people, they tried to build Montessori schools and townhomes and dental offices and other things there. And the town has stood steadfast and said, no, it doesn't meet our RE1.
I didn't know that. That's an interesting angle.
Churches have different rights, and they are under RE1. They are allowed to locate their buildings in an RE1 location, but they still are subject to our zoning codes. Go back a number of years, we have two. We have Chase Oaks Church there, and we have the meeting house, the LDS meeting house. And the councils at the time did reasonable things to accommodate those so that we didn't get into a legal issue. It's part of the problem, or part of the issue. My concern right now is if we deny this, either prejudiced or without, it's not going to make that much difference, that we then are setting ourselves up as a town to be looked at by a judge, a federal judge, by the way, who would say, well, they weren't cooperative. They didn't even try.
Yeah, very good
That's what
point.
my concern is right there. So I see people shaking their head, but you haven't had the counsel we have. Anyway, so I'm still in
They
the
have
mode
to
of,
show they
I
tried.
need to
And then the
continue
church
this.
comes back and they're the
Let
ones
them,
that
let the
blew it.
LDS folks go back home. Let them have a shot at meeting our requirements. As Mr. Custer said, I believe, if they don't, then we're rejected the next time. And yeah, that's a big hassle to do that, for everybody to show up here, both sides. It's a big hassle, especially for our town management, the folks who run our town. This was an enormous task. Everybody ought to thank our, as a matter of fact, I'm going to ask you to do that. Please thank our town employees.
And there's clapping. They cut out all the clapping on the recording. But yeah, while they're clapping, that's exactly right. If they were just to say deny right now, they look, no way, and could open to even worse legal action. If they say,
we are a
you got 2
small
months,
town. We have a very small
bring it to
staff,
us and we'll approve it.
You may not know from Salt Lake City, but we have the lowest tax rate around here. The town our size, a town almost any size. And we pride ourselves on that, and we continue to try to do better with that. We're very efficiently run. We have a great town staff. But that being said, they are stressed to do this, but they are willing to do this again if we need to. Again, this, I believe, is the way we protect ourselves, position ourselves for what might come is litigation.
What will come
So anyway,
is litigation.
That's my 2 cents. And if, if we want to deny
I'm
it,
doing a senior picture pose for some reason. I don't know.
I don't think that's
I'm just like falling apart at the end.
Anyway, we're in a quandary here. So if anybody wants to try to break it, we got a public hearing that's still open. If I close it, I don't know. What do we do if I just close it?
Can make a motion to deny. You can take no action.
Okay, so we would take it. We would have a motion to deny and take no action.
No, that should be 2 motions.
That would be an option. Either a motion to deny with
or
take no action.
Yeah.
And then you would.
So we could close
it back, but you would bring it back at a future date without the opportunity for a public hearing.
Public hearing, okay. Which I don't think that's what anybody wants. Yeah. We'd rather have the public hearing again. Okay.
I'm curious.
It's like the public hearing is still open. Richard, I'll give you the last word from the. What's that?
I don't want the last word. What I wanted to say is,
but please be brief.
1700.
This is a church rep.
Yeah. Our application hasn't been heard.
Is what?
Our application has not been heard tonight. We didn't present the application with the understanding there was going to be a continuance. In addition, we asked church members not to sign up to speak tonight. Hopefully,
you told them not to show up.
Hearing for some period of time.
They didn't cancel the meeting. They just said you'll get an extension, but the meeting was always, and it's a public meeting.
If you're going to go forward with this tonight, then we'd like to present our application. We'd like to allow our people to stand up and speak and say what they want to say. Because we ask them not to, based on our conversation.
Boom! Pause it. We asked them not to. Who's we? Who's we that has a power over a citizen who has the right to go and speak and say whatever they want in their town, about what's happening? Who's we? We asked them not to speak. So now that we know that you're leaning toward denying, now we want them to come up and speak. Although they did already speak. What do you think of that? What is he talking about?
Yeah, they could have spoke at any time. Again, this was an agenda item. It was on. They asked for a continuance. Now, the town is being honorable and saying, we're going to do what we said, and we're going to give you the extension. Of course, the people on the board, the town council could have voted not to give that to them.
They could have said no.
And there's nothing the mayor could have done about it because it's the vote. but they all were honorable and did what they said. And now they're asking the church to do, what they said, and that is to make a change and come back. But why the church would tell their people don't show up to the scheduled meeting because we're getting an extenuation.
Yeah.
The people have a right to go and speak.
They have a right.
They're telling them that they tell them in the leadership meeting, you don't speak for us. And you go tell them that you can't speak for us. And yet we're telling you when to speak and when not to speak. So you kind of are speaking for us because you're speaking when we tell you to speak. And you're saying what we're telling you to say. So
exactly. No, and that's it. And I believe the citizens wouldn't think anything about this kind of a meeting if it weren't the temple. So yes, they sent out the emails. They had thousands of people in white shirts ready to come to the meeting. They had thousands of people they were trying to get 13,500 emails supporting the temple, of which they know nothing about the issues or why it's even being, a problem or being denied. They have no idea. I think they've just been told that there's religious bigotry. And then at the last minute, when legally behind the scenes, they work out a thing where they say, let's just do a continuance. Probably they send an email with the words, stand down. What does that sound like to you, Landon? An organization where thousands of people can be told show up, and then thousands of people can be told stand down.
Stand down is almost a military
that's what I'm saying.
Word, yeah.
Mobilizing. Yes, mobilizing. Yeah. And I hope that shows residents in Fairview and other towns the degree of mobilization that can take place here. The sheer number has an impact.
And the fact that they asked them to stand down is indicative. So what happened is they asked them to stand down, then they hired one of the highest paid law firms in the area that does real estate law.
Yeah.
So does that tell you they're going back to redesign the temple and come back with a new thing?
No.
Or does that tell you we're going to do a full court press in 2 months? We'll have even more people here. We're going to go back and we're going to bring in these lawyers and we're going to have even more threats.
Yep.
That sure sounds like the posture that they're taking. They didn't call in the best architecture firm to come redesign the temple. They called in the law firm. And, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they're going to actually make a concession, but from past experience, they will lawyer up.
Well, I will say that because this is very similar to Cody. When you say very similar to what happened in Cody.
Oh yeah. And again, we talked about where are the leaders in this? Why aren't the decisions makers there? Mm-hmm. Who goes to a business meeting and during the business meeting, they say, yeah, we're going to have a meeting to discuss this issue. And you say, well, none of our leadership will be there, but our lawyers will be.
We got to take this back to the boss. Yeah, we got to take this back to the boss. And how many times did they say that above my pay grade? It's just crazy. And I will say this, it is very interesting. We have always wanted on Mormonish, since we first started covering Cody, just all alone. And then Heber said, hey, we're here too. And then more recently, Lone Mountain McKinney. We've always thought the larger picture was very interesting and very telling. And just on Friday, there was an article in Axios. Is it Axiom? Axios, right?
Axios.
Axios, where they did tell the big picture in a really good way. And we understand there are 2 more articles from national outlets that are going to be coming out either this weekend or through the week. I feel like just the behavior and the antics, I think note is being taken. Whatever that will result in, at least people are aware.
Communities are starting to look and say, I don't want a temple coming to my town. Look what happens.
That's exactly right. That's exactly it. Yeah. A reputation. And I know the reputation is very important to the church. I know reputation is very important to the members, and they do have a great reputation on lots of different levels. So again, the common member, the average person who's receiving emails, say the steeple means everything to you and you can't go to the temple without it. What? Go to this meeting. What? No, now be quiet. You can't speak, as we saw happen at the planning and zoning meeting. Residents were speaking, LDS members, they were bearing their testimonies, and it wasn't going well because the planning board kept saying, say something relevant to us. We can't hear about your faith. That's great. But and again, the testimony. And finally, area rep gets up and says, we've heard enough from the LDS people. You can sit down. There was a gentleman at the pulpit ready to talk. That gentleman said, thank you, and sat down. What is that? You have the right to speak. You have the right to say, this doesn't sit quite right with me. I don't want to receive these emails telling me what I think and what I have to do. This isn't correct. And that's the average member, right? And that's not who we're talking to. We're talking to the institution. This is such a great opportunity for fabulous PR, right? A temple that comes in, a temple that meets the code, a temple that works with the people. Temples of Hinckley's era did this, and it was great PR. It's really hard for the church to get PR anymore. This is the way you could do it. What I said before, the residents in Cody, the first ones that we ever talked with, they said, well, we're all God-fearing, church-going people, and this is a church, and we're a church, and we'll just work this out. Within a very short period of time, they said, what is this? This isn't a church. This seems like a corporation. We knew nothing about Mormons before. We had no opinion. We do now. And so do all the other people in our town. We do now. It's negative PR that is unnecessary, and it's using the regular member to do the dirty work. Do you feel that way?
Absolutely. Absolutely. These people are being put in a horrible situation simply because the church leaders have decided that they must build gigantic buildings in residential neighborhoods. And they even say in multiple of the meetings that we've heard and transcripts that we've heard that people don't like them in residential neighborhoods. So put them in commercial neighborhoods, put them in business areas. That's where they're zoned for. If you're going to make them big, you put them in those areas. If you want to make them small and keep them within the zoning codes, then no one has a problem. The rule usually is schools and churches make good neighbors.
Yes.
Because they're quiet and they tend to, be well kept up and whatever. But when you make it so massive that it completely blocks your view of the sun, that becomes problematic.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Joel couldn't even raise a garden anymore. And that's one of the tenets of the faith, right? Kimball era. You've got to have a garden.
Can't grow his own food storage.
Anyway, I know. I would just want to make it clear we're not going at any individual members. We feel that they are victims in this pawns. Okay, pawns. That's what I feel like. They're pawns. Sit down, stand down, get up, put on a white shirt, say this, pretend this has always been part of your religion. You don't have to do that. You can be like the other gentleman that got up and said, I'm so disappointed and I need to say something about it in good conscience. I can't continue this.
We've heard that before. The members stand up and they say, I'm asked if I'm honest in all my dealings to go to the temple. And then I'm asked to tell something that's not honest about the temple so it can be built so I can go to it. Now I'm in a conundrum. If I don't do that, I don't support the brethren, which is one of the questions. And if I'm honest and say what I believe, I'll be excommunicated. They're worried about that. He's scared. And rightly so. We've all been there. We all know. Why are people scared to voice their opinion? Because we know how this organization handles people who dissent.
Yeah. And there is that concept of lying for the Lord. Someone brought that up before. And that is that by any method, as long as it, results in what the Lord wants, it's okay. And I've said this before, but I had a conversation about the temples with a family member, very sincerely trying to explain, it's not an anti-Mormon thing. It's not an anti-resident against Mormons thing or people of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Sorry, let me use the full name. And I explained all the things that were going on, the manipulation behind the scenes, just everything. And this person said, none of that matters. And I said, can you not see that this is not ethical? The person said, I see it's not ethical, but it doesn't matter. And I said, why does it matter? Because the Lord needs his temple at whatever cost. And that's what we're dealing with here.
Yep. And that's why I don't believe they're coming back with any changes. I think they're coming.
No, I don't think so either.
Cost.
No, because they just hired that law firm.
But good on the city council, the town council of Fairview. They have done a fantastic job.
They have.
They're listening. They're considering everything. They made the right decision. They have to do that legally to protect the city and to strengthen any case if the church opts to file a lawsuit against them. And that's what the mayor's doing. And that's great leadership.
It is great leadership. Because there's a lot of fear involved. He's looked at Cody. He's looked at Heber. He's looked at Lone Mountain. They have all been threatened.
Yeah.
Well, maybe not so much Lone Mountain, because instead of being threatened, they were sort of rewarded.
Yeah.
May or may not have anything to do with it, but it's kind of interesting. So yeah, let's finish up here. It's so hard not to get on a soapbox after every 3 minutes, right? But I think we did a good job.
Which is almost equal to this number of people.
Yeah. Again, this is the LDS person saying,
Right.
why can't our people talk?
I'm just representing to you. I'm trying to reflect to you what my understanding of the conversation was today. If you heard it differently, that's fine. It is what it is. But we haven't had our opportunity to give our application, so. Grateful.
They have requested a continuance, but
Yes.
the council went forward with the public hearing. It's still open. It would be at the discretion of the presiding officer as to whether to move forward with allowing the application to be presented.
So why weren't the presiding officers there?
Because
would
only
rather
lower
hear something
leadership
about
shows up.
What?
Yeah,
No
they're-
decision makers.
No one can ask a question to them. They're beyond
Exactly.
question.
Change,
Because they're hiding in Salt Lake.
rather than hearing what we already know about it.
You mean how it will change from when? You're saying, will it change tonight? We have
No.
a presentation. We're prepared to go forward if that's the wish of this council. We've asked that you not do that, not require that you give us a chance to continue a conversation we started today. I have no representation I can give you that we're going to get where you want, but I am confident that the church is going to listen to what you say and they're going to come back and talk to you some more.
Mhm.
Can we bridge the gap?
I'm confident with that too.
That's above my pay
With
grade.
more lawyers.
I represent to you, I guarantee you that will happen, and we will come back and we will talk to you and we will try to work with you. That's the best I can do.
Okay.
But if you're going to vote tonight,
I'm going to clip that soundbite and put it next to the article about the first lawsuit.
Allow us to present our position. And if you want to vote it down, then that's what you do.
See, they're worried now that there are talks ahead of time about continuing now that they might be going the other way. So they're trying to go, wait. You said that. Let us give our presentation. They're concerned that maybe what they arrived at earlier, they're not going to follow through on because they've heard the other councilmen talk.
That's denying. Yeah.
Bring continuance to it.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion.
Please, John.
Well, I think you already made it. I'll go in and second that motion to continue the meeting. So,
Yep.
So we have a motion and a second to continue the public hearing on August 6th at 7:30 here in this building.
Extend it out for.
But with 2 months, we're given 2 months. But
Going on.
I mean, I'm going to be out, but I'll be back in 2 weeks. That's plenty of time. The big deal is for them to come back with something that's more reasonable, so to speak.
Come back with something more
That's what
reasonable.
they asked for. So if they need 2 months, I'm willing to give them 2 months to try. And again, if in 2 months if something doesn't change or something significant doesn't change, then we have the opportunity to deny with or without prejudice. But I think it is best for us from a town perspective that we allow them to have 2 months or whatever it is to go back and they know what we're looking for. Here, I can't recognize you. I'm sorry. So anyway, we have a motion and a second. Are y'all ready to vote? We're going to try. Okay. So all in favor, here, we'll do a hand vote, okay? So we know who's doing this. So if you're in favor of continuing this out for 2 months, please raise your hand. You know? All right. We have 4. Those opposed and those abstained. So we got 4-1. So the public hearing will remain open until August the 6th, 7:30 p.m. right here. And during that course of time, we hope that the folks from Salt Lake City will come back with something that's a little more in line with what our ordinances are. So we have other business to do tonight, so we're going to do that. But I'll
Okay.
give everybody
Look at that. I think we can end it.
We made it. Yep.
We made it. We did it. I don't know if our viewers and listeners made it. Maybe they're going to watch it in little chunks over the next little while, but hopefully as we got started, you kind of caught that bug, you know what I mean? And just to see this all unfolding, it's absolutely fascinating. And I do understand why the town made that decision. Do you understand why they made that decision?
Oh, absolutely. And they made the right decision. They had to do that. So yeah, it's fascinating. We know it's long, but anyone who made it through has got to be walking away just going, wow, that was really fascinating to hear.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you didn't know much about this and haven't been following it, you can go to Mormonish Podcast on YouTube. We've done many episodes. They're in a playlist there. We've done a lot of shorts. For example, that meeting that we talked about, that recording was sent to us by some people that were at the leadership meeting. We put that on YouTube, just an audio. That's very revealing too. So we have a lot of information there. You can also go over to our Facebook page on Mormonish, and we have posts all about this kind of information, everything that's happening. I know a lot of it is technical and legal, but I'm hoping by listening to this and our commentary, you kind of understand, because I've seen a couple podcasts. I think finally some faithful people, our podcasts are starting to go, wait a minute, what's happening here? Is the church being attacked? And I've seen them sort of viciously attack Nemo. I've seen them saying some slurs against Fairview, sort of in mockery. And I've also seen them put out information that is incorrect. They do not understand the legal issues behind this at all. They need to do some homework. They need to get up to speed. And then maybe even they will go, yeah, this seems not quite right. Like some of the other LDS members that we've seen. Would you hope for that, Landon? Just understand what's happening.
Minimally educate yourself. Whatever side of this issue you want to come down on, that's fine. But know what the reason is so that you can understand and not just say this is religious bigotry. You're building a facility 5 times taller than anything else in the area. It's twice the legal height that's allowed in a residential area. You're making claims that other churches were allowed to do this, and they weren't. They were rejected for trying to build something just as high as you did. And in all fairness, that needs to be applied all the way across the board, or they're going to be in trouble. That church can now sue them and say, we applied and you rejected us. So,
the Methodists can say, we want our tower. And again, this is what happened in Heber. They made concessions for the LDS church for that height and that light. And now, right now, a golf course whole big thing is trying to come in, and they're saying, will you let those guys? So yeah, it opens the door, and that's why zoning is there. It's voted on. You voted on your officials to protect you. And we see this all the time with residents. They say, protect us, protect the LDS too, protect everyone. You have to be fair and balanced, not just to one group. Please protect everyone and do what's best for everyone. That's the key to being an elected official.
Yep, it protected the LDS people from the Methodist Church coming and building a 153-foot tower in their backyard. So
that's right. That might have been a problem. Yeah, it's very interesting. Well, we hope you enjoyed this, and please comment. We now have 2 months to wait until the next meeting. Now, the Lone Mountain, Nevada meeting, the Planning and Zoning Board passed the recommendation to go ahead and build the temple with no problem. It is now going on to City Council, and that is going to be in July, I think July 17th. So we'll have a couple meetings back to back. We'll be updating you on everything that's happening in between now and then. And we will let you know. This is definitely something worth watching. And as I said, there have been several articles that have come out and will come out about this big picture. This is brand new. I mean, if you watch my podcast, whenever we temple watch, I always go, please, a bigger outlet. Don't I always say that all the time, right? The only thing we've ever been hoping for. And it seems like now, a year and a half later, it's actually happening. I mean, I was on social media the other day, I was scrolling on Reddit, and I'm like, oh my gosh, every third or fourth post is something about the temple. That was nothing. I used to post things and it was crickets, wasn't it, Landon? People were like, yeah, whatever, Cody, I don't know what that is.
Can anyone catch this vision of what's happening?
Can't anyone catch that? Because we're always right? No, and I just have to, the residents that we work with are just wonderful people, as you can imagine. And they're loving people. And they're just saying, we're trying to protect our town, the look and feel of our town. Let's all be neighborly. Let's all be respectful. Let's all get along. So Anyway, enough. Right. Are we 5 hours in now? Is it 6
We're
hours?
Too long in. Yep.
Too long in. Did anybody DoorDash us anything? I need to go downstairs and see. So anyway, please comment. Let us know if you've been following this, if you're brand new to it, if you feel like you might have caught the temple bug now. It's really interesting. Please like and subscribe to Mormonish Podcast. And if you want to be made aware when new episodes about temple building or anything else comes out, you can hit the notification bell and that will let you know. You can also help financially support Mormonish as we do all this temple watching and temple busting. We recently became a 501c3. We're very excited about that. So we have a new link in the show notes to donor box where you can even set up a monthly payment or just something that can help Mormonish continue to bring you the content that we think that you all enjoy. And we certainly do appreciate everybody that does. We honestly could not continue to do this without all of you. We also have our Mormonish merch store. Gosh, I'm all the way out of water. This is a long, are you out of water too?
Too long.
We were like, oh my gosh, trying to get through this. Links to that in the show notes. You can order some Mormonish merch. And again, we just say thank you very much. And thank you for, just continuing to watch our content and to support us. And we feel like this temple watching that we're doing is some of the most important content that we're doing. And so we really do appreciate all of you for sticking with us and for watching this. So we will see you next time on Mormonish Podcast. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for joining us for another episode of Mormonish. We really appreciate our listeners and would love to hear from you if you have a story you'd like to share. You can email us at mormonishpodcast@gmail.com. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, and on our website, mormonishpodcast.org. And don't forget to look for us on YouTube and like and subscribe. Keep joyful, everybody.